All right. I'm live. I hope I've got my audio here fixed. We're going to be getting into trouble today. Like big time trouble. Are you guys ready for that? I know I am. Let me get my speakers here correct in my ear just so we don't end up getting any reverb. Look, it's been a minute. It's been a hot minute. I haven't been live in a while. I mean, I was on a roll doing these conversations with people who are ex-Christians, right, who've left and things like that. I just came back from Professor Elaine Pagel's in New Jersey. What a heck of a trip. She's such a sweetheart and so much wisdom, that she brings to the table in her insights. Of course, we were discussing her book, Miracles and Wonder, The Historical Mystery of Jesus. And Elaine is far more sympathetic to the sacred nature of this literature. Now, you might be going, dude, you clickbait the hell out of this title. I really haven't. Just stay tuned. Just stay tuned. If you're watching right now, you're going to see what kind of trouble we're headed down, and it's going to legitimately cause shockwaves, I think, within academia at large, but also in the online communities. I mean, if you thought, all right, Derek, you've already pushed the boundaries enough by trying to push some of that Old Testament stuff down into the Hellenistic period, wait till we start discussing some of this other more radical material here in just a moment. Now, I know those of you who are tuning in are probably going, D, it looks like you were about to say Jesus is true and, we need to convert or something. That was not my intention, just for those who might have felt like what's about to happen. But I want to say something on that note. There are some huge platforms on YouTube. And if you watch them and observe from a distance, you can tell, you go, man, there's no way they've built such an empire in a particular grifted angle of faith or anti-faith perspectives that they can't change their mind, even if they wanted to, because they want to make a living and provide for their family. At the end of the day, I do not ever want that to be me. I do not ever want to be guided only by what the people around me that watch me believe, and therefore I must follow and tote that line and must think within the group think. I've tried to avoid that. Of course, we've gotten in trouble in the past. We've had a lot of hot stuff happen here on MythVision, and man, I'm trying to do the best I can to be a people person that also is respectful of people's different opinions and such. But I don't want it to ever be a place where, oh, my audience thinks like this, and I must therefore tote that line. Look, you get what you get when you come here. Keep it real. You get what you get. If I start thinking something, I'm going to explain that. I'm going to express that. You're going to hear it from the horse's mouth. This is what I think. And I don't want anyone's beliefs or non-beliefs to ever cause me to go down a path of what I should and shouldn't think. I want reason. I want actual arguments, evidence to guide my path. This journey that I'm on, we call life. And I hope that for everyone who's viewing, we should have a place where it doesn't matter what you believe necessarily, but rather, what kind of character do you have? What kind of person are you? That's more important to me than belief. I've gotten in trouble with atheists on my Facebook groups when they're so derogatory toward people who are theist. I banned the atheist from the groups and defended the theist in my groups. Why is that? It's not about what you believe. It's about being a decent person, because no one has it all figured out except me. Of course not. Just kidding. But you might be asking yourself, man, you brought me here. What might we be wrong about, right? Well, there's several things there's no way to know for sure if we have everything figured out about when it comes to the origins of Christianity, Old Testament, origins of Judaism. There's all sorts of stuff. But one thing that really, really blows my mind right now, and I've been reading a book, and I'm going to go ahead and just show you now, and then I'm going to just take some questions and talk to you and let you know that there will be an interview that's coming. And that is, what if we are wrong about the Apostle Paul? Now you might go, dude, what do you mean? I'm talking, let me roll back the tape a little bit here for you. Years ago, someone commented in my YouTube channel, right? And they weren't just mythicists. Did Jesus exist or not? These people legitimately said, I don't know if Paul exists. Okay. And I'm like, you don't know if Paul, the apostle Paul, exists? I'm commenting back with him, how stupid are you? I mean, like, honestly, forgive me, whoever random person you were or are, if you even watch my channel, if I didn't trigger you to leave and have nothing to do with me ever again. But hear me out. You might go, what the hell's going on here? Paul mythicism? Bear with me for a second. So I'm writing this guy going, dude, how crazy do you have to be to think there may not have been an apostle Paul? Okay. Like, that's ridiculous, right? Who would ever question this man who's pouring his heart out, the authenticity of the 7 golden letters of Paul, that he cries out and he begs for people to listen to him? Oh, Galatians, oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? I mean, now you're going to re-crucify Christ, that his crucifixion means nothing? Like, he's yelling through these letters, or at least that's how it felt to me while I was reading them. And he says, I'm not a liar. People are calling me a liar. I'm not a liar. I tell you the truth in Christ. And, you hear this frustrated human, this frustrated Jew who's trying to persuade his real authentic mid-first century churches that they need to tote the line because the end is about to happen. The parousia of Christ is coming. The end of all things is upon us, right? And I'm like, duh, that's a real dude screaming through a real letter at a real church. How idiotic of you to even question whether or not this guy exists or not. Like, I legitimately was like fed up because there's so much weird conspiracy insanity online, and I'm trying to do good scholarship, and I just was like, now here's the reason why I'm even apologizing up front. It's because who the hell am I? Number one, I'm not a PhD. Okay, which, whatever, authority, non-authority could be a fallacy. All right. And what does the consensus say? Got it. We could talk about fallacies there. Consensus can be damned at the end of the day, right? Because they could be wrong. But I never really read the history of how we came to believe that these 7 Pauline authentic letters are really Paul. And, by the way, what the Dutch radicals said, what all the various different critical scholars said. I mean, did you know that many of the Dutch radicals only held 4 letters as authentic? And why did they do that? I never really read that stuff. I never really questioned these 7. I kind of was coaxed into the typical, let's regurgitate, let's repeat what everyone else has been saying and just accept it. And some of the critical thinking I've learned over the years from people like Richard C. Miller. Let me play that tape out. Richard Miller, Dr. Miller, who wrote the book Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity, he had me re-evaluate this whole idea of the eyewitness claims in Paul's letters. And what he did was very interesting. I'd never had anyone make me think this way, and I hope that you can track along with me. The Gospels have these post-mortem appearances. Well, he goes and shows you, documenting in Greco-Roman mythology with historical people, that would be legendary, and non-historical mythic people. The ancients believed these people likely existed. So even if they were mythical beings like Heracles or Asclepius, they thought they existed in the distant past, but yet they made claims about them that you'd go, that's definitely fable, that's legend, that's mythology. We don't think that happened. And a lot of these tropes, their bodies go missing after they die, or they're taken and their body vanishes, right? This trope of the missing body is like a very key, important aspect of a legendary theme that you find centuries prior. I mean, 500, 600, 700 years, all the way with Aristeas of Proconesus. Herodotus talks about this 7th century BCE figure who goes into a fuller shop, dies. The fuller closes the door. Notice he's sealed in the fuller shop, dead, goes to find the family members to tell them that their loved one's dead, and then comes back and someone goes, what are you talking about? I just saw him walking out of the city on the road, saw him on a road, and Then hundreds of years later, Aristeas shows up again to these people, tells them build a statue of Zeus and of him, and they build a temple to him. Anyway, he appears several times after he's dead. Now, I'm rolling the whole tape to point this out. There were eyewitnesses that far back claiming to have seen Aristeas. There were eyewitnesses of the Caesars after they died, after they had been taken up, appearing to people on roads, Roman roads. Drusilla ascending to heaven. We know about Julius Caesar, right? The comet, the asteroid. And he's like, whoa, there he is, having an apotheosis where all eyes could see this natural phenomenon was depicting the evidence needed to show that he actually did ascend and become divinized. And the Senate coerced into really taking that stance, or the people would not play games with them, right? So all these eyewitness claims that you find in the Gospels, if you work backwards based on our chronology of how we work the New Testament, you get Paul's letters, which are the earliest evidence of Christianity, and we grant 7, right? It's almost like a dogma, like we must, because they have a similar language and tone. Then you get Mark, then you get Matthew or Luke, depending on who you think wrote first, and then John typically is last. Sometimes people put Luke before or after John. The synoptic issues and John, like, it's not my enigma to solve. And there's so many brilliant minds who try to come at this and wrestle with it. But Mark seems obviously first. That seems to be a no-brainer. So when you take this chronology and you work backwards, Richard Miller would say, hey, eyewitnesses, why do we recognize these are legendary in the Gospels or mythic? Never happened. They're inventing them as a literary trope in the Gospels. But then we get to Paul in the 1 Corinthians 15 creed, and we go, yep, authentic eyewitness claims, authentic eyewitness testimony. And then, as Miller points out, we look to these other legends contemporaneous with the Gospels, with Paul's letters in the first century, where eyewitnesses are seeing Caesars post-mortem, dead. They're already gone. They're already divinized, and they're showing up on roads, and they're appearing to people, and they're watching them ascend. All of this as part of, I'm going to use the word, Roman imperial propaganda divination machine. Your emperor, before they died, was already expected to be divinized, to become a god in the imperial cult. It was almost foreshadowed in their life that they're going to become a god, and they will be worshipped, and they will be remembered. They will have a sacred story telling you about how they became a god. Eyewitnesses will come forward. It's part of the machine, Miller would say. We get to 1 Corinthians 15, and what do? We turn off any comparative analysis. We turn off the Roman imperial stuff. We turn off Apollonius of Tyana and their invented eyewitness claims. We grant they're invented. We look at Vespasian and the various accounts of him performing a miracle of healing a blind man and stepping on the withered hand of a man in the Serapean temple in Egypt. With a man named Basilides, he sees in a vision, which is maybe a common name, but I always like to bring this up because one of the early Christians was Basilides. He was an adoptionist. We like to call adoptionist. But he gets talked about. Clement talks about him a lot. He ends up becoming heretical in the views of many of these early church thinkers. But Basilides was in Egypt as well. Anywho, maybe there's a connection here. Maybe there's not. Here's the deal. Why do we shut off 1 Corinthians from the rest of all the eyewitness traditions that are floating around, that are invented, that are purposeful, that are literary, that are oftentimes just part of the propaganda machine to make your guy divinized? And then Miller added a layer to the cake. You ready? Who's writing this? According to what we've been thinking, one of the chief cult leaders, I'm using the quote here not to say, I'm not trying to be derogatory. You can take it that way if you want, but it's not my point, because Apollonius had a cult, imperial cult. Here's the Christ cult. The leaders of the cult are telling you this. Let me do a thought experiment. If Joseph Smith told you he saw the golden plates with his own eyes and saw the angel Moroni, the cult leader of Mormonism, do you believe him? He told you. Why aren't you accepting the testimony of the man who is leading the cult? You would say he has a different agenda, or likely has motives that, whether or not we know them or not, we can guess, but we have different reasons to think this guy has different motives than literally actually seeing the things he's taking the claims to, right? This is a long circle I just took you down to make the point. Scholarship gets to 1 Corinthians 15, and we take it so serious. We have to make it hallucination. We have to make it group hallucination. Now, that's possible. It's even plausible. Humans hallucinate. Humans can be wacky and have malfunctions and stuff. There's all sorts of stuff. I've got a video coming out. My buddy Stephen Ford is helping craft the script. It kind of goes down that path of dealing with hallucinations and group hallucinations and stuff. But why do we do this? Why do we not at least say, hey, this has verisimilitude to other examples of cults where they invent these things? And that's what Miller made me think about. So then the question becomes, using that same comparative thing, and we're willing to say the Gospels are inventing stuff, then we work into Paul's letters and we go, bona fide, real experiences. This is authentic. These visions are real in Paul's letters. Then you go read the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse of John, and I have some stuff coming out about that as well. And I've just read some more material on this. And wouldn't you know, I've got a documentary coming, me with documentaries. Wow. Dealing with the book of Revelation and how the visionary experiences documented there are fictive. They invented. They are a literary creation. So the visionary experiences by this guy on the island of Patmos aren't actual visions. They're a literary trope invented from scripture and, of course, dealing with contemporaneous things on the ground. All right. Where are we going, D? Why are you taking us down this path? Why might we be wrong? Okay. Coming to Paul. Using that logic, we all, critical scholars all say, we say 7 are authentic, but we're willing to say like Ephesians and Colossians. Yeah, they made that. That's not Paul. Someone is writing fictive letters in the name of Paul, pretending, forging that they are the Apostle Paul. The earliest we ever get of Paul. Now, I know we get like First Clement and Ignatius and stuff. By the way, that's disputed in the book I'm going to be showing you, and we're going to kind of just discuss briefly, but I am going to be interviewing the expert. Never have I read a book that does this in this way. But here's the question. If they're already making up books in the name of Paul, you know they're making up books. They're inventing and forging these other letters, other pastorals, and other texts. And then we get to these 7. What makes us make these 7 actually from Paul? The fact that they have similar language? Someone who's writing them seems to be the same person, maybe? How is that not circular reasoning? Let's use the logic that Miller was talking about, working backwards from the Gospels. Then you get to Paul and, these are real. Why do we stop at 1 Corinthians 15 and say these are real, authentic experiences, but the gospel narrative accounts are clearly legendary? They're fictive, which I think is obvious. It's like Luke 24 with the Roman road experience, the road to Emmaus. The character is an invented character. Like, there's so many things. Cleopas, glory of the Father. The name means the glory of the Father. And he plays a role where he doesn't even realize that Jesus is standing next to him. They're walking on the road. Like, this is Odysseus, right? You've got to look at Bruce Loudon's work on this. Like, it's easy to see the fictive nature there. Then you get to the Paul letters and you go, this is bona fide. This is legit. Why do we go to the 7 of Paul's letters and say, yep, these are Paul? We know these are Paul. Why do we just assume that? And if we swept the rug out from underneath those 7, what would happen to all of these studies that we're talking about on early Christianity? How would we reevaluate all that we've built? The chronology of Paul's letters are earlier. though the Gospels, which are written later, are supposed to be depicting the earlier, before Paul's letters, walking on the ground Jesus stuff. And so I think I've held my breath long enough. I think it's time that I at least show you who the academic is. Many of you may already know the name of this scholar, but I do want to do an interview with her. And here it is. The Letters of Paul in their Roman literary context, reassessing apostolic authorship. Nina E. Livesey. I hope I'm pronouncing her name properly, but I'm not saying that we are wrong. Who am I? I'm not a PhD here. Not a PhD. I'm not able to know. I've not exhausted the knowledge of knowing all this material. But truth be told, I'm 2 chapters in and I'm thinking to myself, there's some very interesting things that she brings up in this book that I've just never read and never thought about myself. And I have questions for her, right? I'm not persuaded necessarily that there wasn't a Paul, but the way that she actually is describing the data and going through the history of scholarship about Paul makes me at least open the door of saying, what if she's right? What if Paul's letters, including the 7, in their Roman literary context, are likely 2nd century? What if? What if it was the school of Marcion, maybe the people who are within that school or even prior to Marcion himself in that school, were the ones who crafted the letters of Paul? Now, what would be their purpose for crafting them? Why use the name Paul, right? These are things she's trying to tackle in the book, but I have questions for her because she may actually be one of the few scholars I know who thinks that Paul himself may not have existed. And I'm like, these are questions I would have. And then I'll get to your super chats. I saw there were a few. Thank you so much for the support. It's been a minute, right? Here's a question I really honestly want you, the viewer, to help me with, right? If Paul didn't exist, why use his name? What kind of clout, what kind of reputation would you get from using a fictive name like Paul? Right? What kind of, like, if I just name drop Billy, Billy, am writing you. What does Billy do for you? Who's Billy? So if Paul doesn't exist, why does he have so much authority in these fictive letters? I mean, I have some critical thoughts, right, to try and jab and see. I want to see what Nina brings forward. But then there's other things that make me go, what if she's right? I mean, one of the things she covers in this book, by the way, if it's an expensive academic book, I hate that these academic publishing companies charge so much, because if they knew, like, we would all be purchasing a book if we could afford this damn, book after book after book. She covers this really interesting aspect of going, why do we assume that Acts is before Paul's letters? We're willing to say some of these forged letters are later, but what if, listen, I know this is so radical. I'm not used to this. Like, I'm not used to thinking, what if the book of Acts is actually before the letters of Paul? And the letters of Paul are crafting these little fake epistles, these epistolary fictions, to a 2nd century context. What if Acts is written contemporaneous with the letters in the 2nd century? And I'm in chapter 2 in the section where we're dealing with like early witnesses, right? I'm on page, where am I at here? I'm on page 118 right now. If you have this book and you're tracking along, she's going through Ignatius's letters, right? And we just went through, or I just read through the section going through First Clement, and how there's been some scholarship lately that's pushing First Clement into the 2nd century, potentially mid 2nd century, somewhere in that region. What? I thought Clement was 96 AD. She covers that. She points out how Lightfoot, a guy we've all heard through Christian tradition, it's Joseph B. Lightfoot, 1828 to 1889, his assessment of Clement as a late 1st century bishop. And she explains how scholarship came to this position that Clement is in 96 AD. And the reasoning, she covers the argument. Well, what if Lightfoot was wrong and all the scholars after just, I don't know, naively just swallow the earlier academics that have been peddling this for the last 150 years and never really went, what if Lightfoot's wrong? She goes through a guy named Deisman. She goes through a bunch of different earlier scholars who tried to solidify 7 authentic Pauline letters. And she's saying, we need to question this. The Dutch radicals thought there were only 4. Some of them, of course. So she's a little more extreme than them. But then she compares them to other Roman literature in the 2nd century. I cannot do justice in this video off the top of my head, but I can tell you this. I want to have an interview with her, and I want to dive into this because what kind of nuclear bomb would that be in the academic arena if we came to find out that Paul's letters, hear me out, if all of Paul's letters were fictive, that the character himself never existed? What would that do to origins of Christianity research? You know, I'm into this. I'm fascinated with this stuff. What would it do to who are the audiences in these letters that Paul is fictively writing to? The addressees. And this is too complex. I can't even cover all of it today. It's just, there's so much material about why Paul's writing letters to like general churches, and it's very generic. There's not always like a very isolated situation. Now, you might get him speaking to Priscilla or Aquila or someone specifically in the letter, but she even points out fictive epistolary fictions that are fake letters that do that kind of stuff too. What the heck? So what do we do? These are questions I have. Okay. I'm going to turn over here to you for just a second. And then if you feel like it, I can pop into the book too. But it gets in the weeds. It gets in the weeds. Very interesting book. Apollo's Christian Apologetics. Thank you so much for the super chat, brother. Reception history is definitely going to play a crucial role in the 4th quest for the historical Jesus, or in this case, just early Christianity. The 4th quest. So reception history, I would even argue that works for Paul, right? What is the reception history of Paul? And if Clement did not actually write in 96 AD, but is post Bar Kokhba, as it seems she implies, and Ignatius and these other people, then the earliest context we get of Paul is not individual letters. The earliest we get is him, a collection of his letters. And it's 10. And it's in Marcion school. So, like, what if Marcion school crafted or inherited these letters sometime in the 2nd century? Getting some water. Okay. Chris McCarthy, thank you so much for the super chat. 1054. I don't know what the numbers mean here. Question for scholars. Could Paul have set up or led several churches before his conversion and then converted them to Christianity, perhaps from Mithraism or Judaism? Could Paul have set up or led several churches before his conversion? So I imagine you mean ecclesia could be within Judaism if we grant that he was a Jewish guy practicing Judaism before Christ. Of course, he was a Pharisee, and then converted them to Christianity. I'm having a hard time with this question, understanding what you mean. Like, before he became a Christian, was he a Mithraist? And then you say, or Judaism. I would just go with the Judaism. At least that's what seems to be implied in the letters. So, okay, if we grant her position that these 7 are not authentic, that they're possibly fictive because they match other Greco-Roman fictive epistolary letters in the mid-2nd century in many ways, you'd still read the narratives, the text, and they still imply that he was a Jew, faithful to the Torah, a Pharisee, observant of the law, Hebrew of Hebrews, all of that. So I wouldn't say Mithraism as if he was participating in that. I would say he's probably converting people who are in all of these different cults if he is actually out there doing that. But once you start placing these letters in the 2nd century under Marcion school, Now you got to reevaluate things. Now you got to think through, well, okay, what was going on in the 2nd century, mid-2nd century, early 2nd century? What's happening? How do we understand Paul within Judaism? If you have the Paul within Judaism school, how do you understand this guy that way in the 2nd century? When the rift between Judaism and Christianity, I would imagine that divide is pretty broadened to some extent. But then again, maybe I'm working with faulty premises that we've already been building upon with this earlier idea about the letters being in the mid-1st century. What if I'm wrong, right? Okay, Welsh backgammon, Dummy's Guide, please. Is this Paul mythicism? Okay, this academic, Nina E. Livesey, hope I'm saying her name right, she's not making a Paul didn't exist book, okay? I think she might draw the conclusion that she thinks there probably wasn't a Paul. I say probably. But she is making a case that the 7 golden letters, when I think of that, I always think of like the chocolate factory. These cannot be touched. Like, I know I'm being a little over exaggerating here, but I'm kind of not. Because if you were to approach academics, say I called Bart Ehrman on the phone today, I said, hey, Bart, hey, what do you think about the idea that Paul's letters might actually be epistolary fiction? And he goes, yeah, of course, Ephesians. Remember, he wrote the book Forged, right? And he's basing it on other academics. Yeah, of course, Ephesians and Colossians is forged and fictive. No. I'm talking about every letter that we read in the New Testament is not really written by Paul. They are fictive. Paul did not write these letters. That they're not talking to a middle of the 1st century context ecclesia, but we're talking 2nd century. He would probably go, that is so far out there, he would not even entertain it. The 7 are real. It's accepted. We're not, don't make me lose sleep tonight, Derek. I am not going to rewrite everything that I've ever published to try and correct. If this is right, it would radically change so much of what has been written by academics in the arena. This would be a game changer. So in a nutshell, Dummy's Guide, you could use this for Paul mythicism, or you could simply say Paul's letters that we have are fictive, but there could have been a guy named Paul who had authority, and they ended up crafting all of these letters in the name of Paul in order to give themselves authority over against other forms of Christians who had more of a apostolic Petrine school or something. So they claimed a Pauline, a Paulianity, if you will, against a Petrianity, different versions of the Christian movement. Apollos, Petrine, Paul, they're all competing. And here you have Paul letters that are, if you will, being fictively invented. It is in the vein of Paul mythicism. Okay. I caught up on the supers. So if we're wrong about that, what kind of changes does that make? What does this mean if all 7 are not really written by Paul? And what if Acts was written before these letters? Or even contemporaneous to these letters? What do we do with Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John? How do we come to understand what we're looking at if she's correct? I mean, do you see the problem or how difficult this could end up being? Someone says, Tate says, write your paper and see if you can change the consensus among scholars. It's not me. This is the scholar who wrote this. I'm not the one writing it. In fact, again, if you're just tuning in, I want to just, again, apologize for having such a strong stance on something that, I'm learning something here. Don't just, I must be so adamant because the consensus is agreeing on one view. This doesn't mean she's right either, by the way. I'm just making the point. Like, I've never researched the history behind why academics take the 7 letters of Paul as really him. But I echoed to a commenter once very harshly that this just sounded like absurd to me. It just sounded like this is crazy. And when I started reading the book, I thought to myself, hold on. Why? Man, I was speaking from ignorance as someone who never really read academics who questioned some of those 7, like the Dutch radicals or even Nina's book, right? It caught me, it blindsided me, caught me off guard. And, you can ask this question of other things, like, what if we're wrong about Jesus? Honest question. What if we are wrong about this guy named Jesus? I mean, do you leave the door open like I do? Are you really saying, hey, we could be wrong about what we think about all this, right? That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, I thought I saw a super. Oh, we did get a super duper here. Reconstructed Bible. Hallelujah. You know what? Thank you seriously, though, for the super chat. I hear people tell me their lives improve after super chats, and they get like a divine revelation internally, a voice, a bright light. Sometimes they're blinded by it and others can hear it that are around them. Sometimes the others around them can't hear it, but they see it. And it somehow tells them they're going to be eternally okay in the blissful afterlife. You said you might like my video explaining how Paul was the Egyptian. I'm working on more videos to explain the impact on the epistles. It may be the greatest propaganda ever written. Look, I'd love to see it. I remember I did an interview with a lady. I am so sorry if I forget her name, early on MythVision, but she did this really interesting thing where she says, look in the book of Acts. They confused Paul with the Egyptian. Now, that may just be because Acts is borrowing from Josephus. Josephus calls this man the Egyptian because, everyone else is Jewish except a Samaritan who's leading a large crowd to Mount Gerizim, claiming some divine intervention is going to happen, and the Romans came and slaughtered him. So for those of you who don't know, Josephus documents many messiahs, many sign prophet types. One was a Samaritan, one was an Egyptian, and the rest were Jewish. So you get them named, right? Thaddeus, and then you get Judas the Galilean, and you get all these different characters that are floating around in the first century, according to Josephus, that are claiming God's on their side. They're going to split the Jordan River. They're going to find these tablets where the temple once stood in Gerizim or something to this effect. Maybe I'm butchering those facts, but in the book of Acts, Romans soldiers actually falsely identify, according to Acts, they thought that Paul was this Egyptian. And then somehow in the narrative, they go, oh, you're not him, I guess. And then he moves on. Please help me in the comments. Anyone watched that interview I did with the lady that actually argues that Paul may actually have been the Egyptian? Because according to what I recall, the Egyptian was leading a revolt near the Mount of Olives, if I'm not mistaken, over against the Romans. He was planning a revolt. He had 20 or 30,000 soldiers or something, and he was going to actually attack Rome. The Roman legions came in and killed him and all the people with him, or he fled and escaped and survived. And all of the people he brought with him were slaughtered on the mountain. And she thought that if you look in one of the scenes in the Gospels, you can see in that garden that they brought legion of army. Why would you bring this for one small dude in a group of 12 guys you think are troublemakers? You wouldn't bring a legion of soldiers when Jesus says, who you looking for? I'm looking for Jesus. Boom. They all fall dead. She saw similarities between Josephus and the Egyptian and Jesus in the garden. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting. What if the New Testament is in more dialogue with Josephus than we credit it? Acts seems to be. And Steve Mason has, in my opinion, closed that door. That seems to be pretty obvious. Even though Bart Ehrman still doesn't buy it. Hugo Mendez buys it. He's in the same office as Bart in Chapel Hill. Let's see. Who else do we have? My brain just went. Other people that work with Bart in there. I can't think right now. of the academics, but there's several, and I've interviewed them that work with Bart, and they're like, yeah, this seems no brainer. But like his threshold of thinking that Axis is in somehow cahoots with using Josephus is just, it's so bizarrely high in my view. Okay. Send me the video if you can email it to me, Reconstructed Bible, or actually, you know what? I have got to get better into the habit of promoting super chatters who want to have eternal, blissful afterlives. Reconstructed Bible, and that's on YouTube. I imagine it's okay. Oh, so you got 503 and now 504 subscribers, my friend. Let me present this and share the screen so people can also find your channel. Reconstructed Bible, the lost teaching of Jesus, reconstructing the original meaning of the parables of Mark. I just subscribed. Maybe we could get some people to go and subscribe. I hit the all. All right, check it out. There's that channel. Be sure to go subscribe. Yeah, I'll see if I can't check it out. Okay. Real quick, before I move to the next super chat, I want to address this. Nicholas, forgive me if I butcher your name here. Lord Roku. I try to do that with videos that I do these documentaries on. The problem with my YouTube descriptions is there's so many links and things that I am trying to promote and put there that having a bibliography for all of my sources, YouTube only allows 5,000 characters in the description box. And oftentimes I might have room for some of them. Like I could put some of these things in there. What I probably need to do is to go back, get the sources, put them into a bibliography, and have them available at some link somewhere where you can go and research deeper if you want to go see my primary sources. But I can tell you this, I don't put a single thing in my documentaries that I'm not finding in primary sources or an academic has found in primary sources. So like a statement that an academic says, or if I don't find an academic say it, I'm looking at the sources and making a comparison myself. I'm going straight to the horse's mouth. And I usually put the source on the screen. So whenever I make a quote, the source is there. I try to back up everything I say. And, you can make up your mind, disagree with the conclusion that I might draw if you'd like. If you do that, you will go to hell for all eternity. And you know that, Lord Roku. Of course, you know that. Totally kidding. All right, next super chat here. Ichapod, giving to get my blessing. Ichapod will tell you, man. He will tell you what happens. By the way, it's so funny you bring that up. I was just thinking about the apocalyptic nature of the New Testament. And I hope you'll subscribe to my brother here, Brady Goodwin. Here's his YouTube channel. I should be linking this stuff. I'm like a one-man army here. Look, there's Ichapod. And just so that I'm not being inconsistent here, I'm putting this. If we have any mods that can actually grab the links, please post them in the comment section so people can find it. We grow our community. We keep making noise, baby, because that's what I want to do. But Ichapod, modern pastors that preach the idea if you give, it's going to come tenfold and all that. I was looking back through that, and it seems so apocalyptic that it's like, no. It's in the kingdom to come that's about to come. Slapped in the face, you're the meek. Don't worry, you're going to inherit the earth. You're the last. Don't worry, you're going to be first. You're poor. Don't worry, you're going to be rich. You're weak. Don't worry, you're going to be strong. And this give, don't worry, is not like they didn't think the eternal legacy of the earth is going to continue with humanity. So part of the philosophy that we would say is very noble and has been redefined in light of the fact that the end of the world hasn't taken place and it never ends and it keeps going, meaning the end did not take place. You get some good philosophy that can come from this, but people are really abusing something I think was initially an apocalyptic idea that, listen, don't give a crap about anything earthly. You're going to get rewarded shortly. Give it all up. If you have if someone wants your coat, give it to them. I don't care. This philosophical view. But anyway, the blessings will come, Ichapod. They will come. Sapient Chipolopod. Golly, man. These are some really tough names. Don't be dogmatic. Paul dogmatic. Boo. I'm trying not to. I really am. Like, the fact that I'm even sitting here in front of, what is there, 772 of you? Like, I'm confessing my sins. And my sin is this, not that Nina Livesey is correct, and not that, her arguments are the case at the end of the day. It is, I never really thoroughly examined and critically analyzed, wondering why we take these 7 so seriously, and not realizing the kind of circular reasoning in that acceptance that we just blindly accept. Academics say it enough. You get 100 academics that say it. Well, if they say it, it's true. And I'm like, there are academics who don't say that. And I'm curious to know why. I really am curious. Especially, look, I don't want to sound like that guy, but I'm going to sound like that guy. Okay. Especially in a field fraught with religious, conservative, pious drive for the faith. Like, can they truly, in many of these institutions with academics, can they truly question the 7 and not lose their job and not lose their position and not lose their careers? Like, I'm not trying to say that is universal. Different institutions operate and function differently, but to pretend that does not play some significant role in academia, especially New Testament academia, is to be ignorant and blind and gullible or naive to reality, because there is definitely a drive within this particular field to conserve, to protect, if you will, our sacred narrative. And Paul sometimes is held on a higher pedestal than Jesus. Like, we could say Jesus failed. We could say Jesus was a false prophet in academia, and then we can still find a way to wrestle our faith and make it work. But when you start questioning Paul, when you start touching them 7, baby, we're in trouble. We're in big, big trouble, and someone's going to spank us for that. So I am not trying to be dogmatic, I promise you, but I'm also not trying to let my brain just fall out because if something sounds really, really interesting. I want to cautiously walk a path, especially in light of the fact that it isn't a consensus view. I'm interested in hearing what she has to say, and I want to have her on. I'm really looking forward to that. All right, moving on to the next Ant. How did you end up finding this book? That's a great question. This book was brought to my attention. Jesus, if my brain was working right. Let me take a sip of water here. Let me think about this. I'm running out of water. I need to get more water here in a second. Who brought this book to me? I know that Jacob Berman interviewed her in person in Texas, but that's not when I first heard about this book. So if you're interested in an interview, look, there's 800 people right now live. If you want to hear her talk, I think it's the only interview I know. Go to History Valley and you can watch him interview her talking about this book and her discoveries. I'll tell you what I'd love to do. I would love to fly her out here and just spend several days recording, going through this book. Because when I tell you, you haven't read it yet, but when I tell you there's so much to it that you have to work through and understand, from comparing Paul's epistles to other epistles of the time, to understanding the scholarship behind how these 7 became the dogmatic, concrete 7 of Paul. Why Dutch radicals thought 4 were authentic. Why this is circular reasoning. What if Acts is before the 7? Like, there's so many things. You kind of need to slowly unravel. You have to deal with, like, if Clement mentions Paul, which he does, but he's not in 96 AD, he's later. You have to, it's an onion of material you have to work through. And if she's wrong on some of this, then it could lead to the fact that maybe some of these 7 are really authentic, or there's just so many questions that you have. But if she is correct about this, this radically changes the game, and I think rekindles a new form or a new wave of Pauline scholars that could come out. That's my personal opinion. So how did I end up finding this book? Someone told me about it. S. Mill, good to see you here. Thanks for the super chat. Useful Charts just did a video. Scholars who think Jesus was Egyptian thinks he fits better preaching 50 to 53 CE rather than 30 to 33 CE. Then Paul 70 to 85 CE would make sense, and Mark would start in 90 to 95. Useful Charts did this? Huh. Let me pull this up. Useful Charts. If you have the video name, oh, the Egyptian. Wow, I just spoke to him the other day on the phone. I needed a chart because he has all sorts of great charts. When I was editing my documentary, I asked him for the genealogy of the Caesars, and he sent me the chart that he had there because I was trying to get into that. Let me share this here with you so you can watch that, save it, cue it, whatever. I hope you'll check it out for yourself. The Egyptian. I haven't watched it. It's 21 minutes. I look forward to seeing what he has to say. S-Mill, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate it. What if we're wrong, right? What if we're wrong? People probably thought, what if we're wrong? Derek is about to just confess. He's about to come forward. Well, I've been wrong. I now must confess my faith or something. No. It's even more radical than that. Like, what if we need to be a bit more critical about some of the texts that we're reading in the New Testament? Scott Rutherford, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. What are the core teachings of Gnosticism? Well, that whole term Gnosticism is one of those funny terms too, because some forms of Gnosticism have dualism, multiple gods, oftentimes an evil creator and then a good God. And then you have some that have like many gods. But then there's this form of Gnostic teaching, and it almost feels more like a realized eschatology kind of position. Like the Gospel of Thomas isn't Gnosticism according to Elaine Pagels, but it is a spiritual teaching that people have interpreted as Gnostic because it's not about pistis. It's not so much about what you believe. It's about knowing and experiencing the divine, and not about, what do you believe, Billy? Oh, I believe that when Jesus died, he was around for 40 days. Well, I don't believe that. I think he was around for 3. And I believe he's also the hypostatic union. And I believe this. And the creed says that. No. Many of these heretical groups are actually much more about your experiencing Christ and not so much about just believing in. And Elaine Pagels hits me differently with some of these cool texts, like the Gospel of Thomas. I can relate to this because at the end of the road, when I deconverted, I still had this inner dialogue within me. I still had this strong sense of, I know myself, I love myself, and I care, and I have a built-in philosophy that helps me be optimistic, that helps me cherish the world and the people around me, my wife and my children. But I don't believe in any deity necessarily. If you want to say, well, Derek, you do believe, and you are within you think there's something great. Okay, whatever you want to do. You want to psychoanalyze me, pigeonhole me, do whatever you want. I don't know what the hell I am. I'm a mutt. But I know that I've had some profound experiences as a human, and I latch onto those. And to me, that's enough. I don't need to believe in something. And Elaine welcomed me. Mind you, Dr. Pagels is a practicer of faith. She believes, to some degree, some of this stuff is real to her, right? And I told her I'm much more cautious and skeptical. She goes, "Oh, no, you're not," joking. But she's like, it's not about belief. It's not about belief. It's about that experience and knowing yourself. And there's a saying in Thomas that says, you lift up the rock, there I am. You go here, I'm there. Like the key or the secret, for example, in that particular book is you are a Christ. You are. And that will get you in trouble when you get to political Christianity that wants to control the narrative and tell you we all need to believe in the one Son of God. By the way, we have a course coming with Dr. Elaine Pagels, and the first 2 lectures is dealing with the Gospel of John is a reaction to the Gospel of Thomas. And she points out that in the Gospel of John, 3 times, Thomas is poo-pooed. Like, it's intentional. They are slandering Thomas in the Gospel of John, inventing the character Thomas, because Thomas Didymus, being the twin of Christ, if you will, in the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of John makes Thomas the doubter who won't believe unless he touches and feels and knows. And then when he breathes the Spirit after his resurrection in the Gospel of John, guess who is conspicuously absent from receiving the Holy Spirit? Yeah, Thomas. Now, that sounds a bit strong to not think there's something going on with John and Thomas. Worth checking out. So that's just the first 2 lectures. We did 8 lectures with her. There's some really good stuff coming. I hope you like that. Sorry, I went off the rabbit trail of the core teachings of Gnosticism because I don't know if there is any specific core teaching. It's not a monolithic thing. There's a whole variety of different Christianities that are floating around with all sorts of really cool stuff. One more comment on that, and we'll move to the next super chat here, Scott, is this. I said this with Neil yesterday. We were recording, but funny thing is we spent like 45 minutes recording, and his audio wasn't even connected to the damn camera. So we rambled on, amazing footage. None of it captured any of our audio. And in that dialogue, I said, you know, Neil, because he's big on early Christianities and these different mystery cults and different Gnostic groups, if you will, to use the term. Carpocratians, Valentinians, Naascenes, you name it. He said, we both echoed the sentiment, Orthodox Christianity demonizes the other. They literally look at any of the pagan myths and they say, demons long ago crafted these stories to look like Jesus. But the Naascenes, Carpocratians, groups like that, they did something that I think is even more brilliant in my view. Their philosophy, their Platonism, I think, is what made them not win favor of the day. I think more Stoicism, moving in that direction of Stoic ideas, was more viral. But what they did that I think was brilliant was they said, hey, yeah, the Jewish scriptures prophesy our Christ, but so do the oracles, you know, at Delphi. I mean, so do the oracles of the Greek myths. So they said all your Heracleses and your Asclepiuses and your Isis and Osirises and your Dionysuses, all of them prophesy our Christ. And that they would even make statements that you could visit the mysteries of Attis. You could visit the mysteries, the other mysteries, and you will see Christ in their mysteries. Now, that tells you how closely related I think the mystery of Christianity was with the other mysteries, but also how inclusive, if you will, that model of Christianity is. The problem is, even Elaine Pagel said this to me, was if you can't control people with one narrative under one umbrella the best you can, then you're not going to have your constituents backing you up in other cities when you get into trouble, financial backing. If everyone is independent and we're not all under one umbrella, then we won't have the support we want and need politically as a movement. So the push, the gear toward orthodoxy was in the making very early on. And it was necessary if you're going to control the way people believe or think and practice, what books eventually start getting weaved out over the centuries, like all of this stuff. It's a wise political move, and yet we end up having the history written, if you will, by them, rather than hearing more from those other groups. All right, I spent quite a bit of time on that. Pine Martin, all people are God's chosen people. I think that's a much more inclusive view. It's a universalist view. It's a nice view, right? If you want to redefine and say, you know what, I think everybody's chosen to some degree. I think that's a much better outlook, right? Instead of like the Athenians, who were xenophobic, the Athenians were the special elites, and the barbarians were outside of that. They might have allowed Greeks outside of Athenians to be considered something special, but they were the chosen. Athenians were the chosen. Go look it up. Yet you get the same thing in scripture, right? So the Jewish people, they're the chosen. The other people aren't chosen. You do get inclusion. You do see this, but it's not till later you get a much more universalist view. For me, You got to ask the question, a bit like some of these people that might spend 30 hours answering a 4-word question. What do you mean by God? What do you mean by chosen? And what do you mean by people? And what do you mean by all? Right? That's the question we should ask ourselves. But if you're going with a believing stance, it's a much prettier picture. It also pisses off the Calvinist, unless they're universalist in some way. But thank you so much for the super chat. Misinterpretations. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for being here. Great to catch you live. I have to go teach, so I'll catch up with you later. Thanks for your support too, Derek. Look, I gotta pull up the channel. Misinterpretations. I know that she was asking me for where I mentioned I always butchered the pronunciation, Kalihari or Kalorho. And it's the famous novel from the 1st century that talks about the body going missing of his wife. Where's it at? Here it is. Tereus and Kalorho, Greek romance. How am I not so? Oh, this is a different channel. That's why. I was about to say. Here we go. All right. Oh, what happened here? Oh, well. Okay. Subscribe to her channel. I'm going to hit the bell. I'm going to just stick it in here in the description or in the comment section. Be sure to check out Misinterpretations. I really do appreciate you supporting the people who are here that are supporting the channel. Look, I'm not going to lie. This month has absolutely sucked on YouTube. I have been busy. I flew to get a course with Elaine Pagels. Who would want to pass up that legendary opportunity to make history? I couldn't pass it up. I also was in the lab for like 3 weeks doing my baptism documentary, which flopped compared to what I thought it would. There's so much information in that documentary that, golly, man, we go through mystery cults, Jesus as a magician. We go through the Roman imperial propaganda. We go through comparing it to Mithraism and the bull of heaven. Like there's an inscription on the Mithras bull. Sabazius is the name, Nama Sabazius, which Nama is, it could be Sanskrit for glory or to bow. And Sabazius is the Thracian deity for Dionysus that Greeks saw as the Dionysian Thracian god. And he's being sacrificed. The bull is being sacrificed. It's a god, just like the Lamb of God, Jesus, is being sacrificed. And the blood purifies. And then you have tauroctony. You have all this interesting stuff that I never knew growing up. If I knew this, I'd be somewhere else years ago. So subscribe to Misinterpretations if you want eternal salvation. Hallelujah. Oh, Krakenford, man, we got more. Okay, so let me come back to me real quick here. Let me look up Krakenford. My buddy here, John F. White. Seriously, I've seen you're more busy lately, man. I'm proud of you for that. I know you've always been busy. I'm subscribing with this channel that I'm signed into. So let me share my screen. What if Paul, you said, was real, but just made it all up? That's plausible. That's the other thing is, did Joseph Smith make up the golden plates and the angel Moroni? Did he make up this stuff? I mean, we don't doubt his existence, but did he make up these things? Why is that not plausible? Oh, I know why. I know exactly why. William Lane Craig says, because they were willing to die. And according to them, they try to argue that all the early apostles did die for believing Jesus rose from the dead, which is just ridiculous. That is not what the sources imply. You even get like early sources that talk about Paul's beheading and dying. He gets killed because he's telling Roman wives whose husbands are Roman elites to stop having sex. I'm not making this up. Like the legend has it that Paul is saying, sex, icky. Don't do no bump, no humpity dumpity. Don't you do that naughty. So they resisted the pleasing their husbands, and the husbands are pissed. What the hell? Why aren't you pleasing me? Well, the Lord is coming, and my belief in Jesus and ascetic thought. Okay, who taught you this? Well, this guy over here, Paul, it's not for resurrection. It's because he didn't want them getting hanky-panky, because that's a big icky wicky. I'm making words up here, okay? But seriously, like, if that's the reason that they're dying, of course, this is probably legendary, but even in the legendary accounts, it's not because he preached, I will not recant that he rose from the dead. I must believe he rose from the dead. No, he's telling them not to do the hanky-panky. That stuff in Platonic form, that is the lowest icky flesh you can be. We don't want to live in the flesh, do we? We want to rise and ascend and be like God, attain to God, Ignatius says, with his martyrdom. He even said that if they wouldn't kill him, Ignatius said this. I'm not saying it. Ignatius, in his letter to the Romans, says, whether he wrote it or not, that if they will not kill him, he will entice them to do so that he can attain to God. Sounds a little honestly insane, personally. Cults to conscious. Hold on. Did I share? Man, we've got so many great names popping in here. Kreckenford, if you didn't go subscribe, I feel like I'm leaving them out here. You got to go subscribe. I'm telling you, the end is near. You want to be found in the New Jerusalem, ladies and gentlemen. So please do yourself a favor and join the new covenant. Okay. Did it publish in the chat? Let me make sure it did. Okay. Okay. Here we go. There it is. Make sure you go subscribe to Kreckenford. Now we're moving to the next super. Cults to consciousness. Got to pull her up. It's so good to see you. Cults to consciousness. Here we go. If you haven't subscribed, oh my gosh, you're blowing up. This is a new channel. I've already been subscribed, so do not judge me. This is not my MythVision channel. Like, I'm subscribed to all of you, but let's put this in here, because what I love about this channel is she helps people tell their stories, and some of the people that have been in some extremely wild cults are literally getting to say their piece. They get to say their gospel, their good news, and they find freedom and happiness and peace. And sometimes they're still working it out, right? Because when you've been traumatized and harmed by some of these cults, like, it could do a number on you and possibly have permanent damage for the rest of our lives. Hey, great to see you. Hope you're well. Let's catch up soon. I would love that. I would sincerely love to catch up with you. Go subscribe to her YouTube channel. It's almost at 300,000 subscribers. Like, you're blowing up. I hope your child is doing well and your husband. You and him are working as a team on the channel. Let's catch up sometime for sure. Hit me on the celly or email, whatever. Let's catch up. We'll do a recording. It's been too long. Thank you for the super chat. JMind01, thank you for that super, my friend. I appreciate it. I hope I'm not missing a comment. And I guarantee you it's buried. There's so many super chats and like comments and stuff. Let me see if I could find you. I am almost there. Oh, there you are. Yeah, I don't see a comment. You're just showing love. Thank you so much. I don't think you have a YouTube channel, JMind01. Let me make sure. You do, but no videos. Okay. So we're fine. All right. Next super chat here. Ollie Rowan in the house. Thank you, Ollie, for being a member and for being here. Did she make allowances for Marcion scholarship? Talking about the book that we might be wrong about Paul. We might be. Not saying we are, but if we are, this could change a lot of what we think we know and how we know it, right? It's just very interesting to consider. Yes, she does get into Marcion scholarship. She does talk about Paul's letters, specifically the first time they're really known externally from the Bible is as a group of collected letters in the Marcion school. I haven't made it past chapter 2, so I imagine she's going to get further into that. And I look forward to it. I really can't say too much more than what I've already really looked at in chapters, well, the introduction, chapters 1 and 2. I'm only on page 118 right now in the section, the Ignatian letters. And I'm hoping to get through it over the next week or two and then set up something. But I tell you what I'd love more than anything, to be able to fly her out and record with her, like I said. Just video after video, deep dive into all of this and let everyone see. That's what I'd love. I also hear that Marcus Vincent might actually be part of the team that's peer reviewing and analyzing the book. So that might help you also to having an idea where this is going from. Ollie, do you have, under this name, do you have a channel? Hold on. Let me make sure. Yes, you do. But you don't have videos. Okay, so I just didn't want to be I want to shamelessly plug. Thank you so much. Dogmatism is residue of indoctrination. I applaud your self-awareness. Sapient equal human. Cephalopod. Octopus, human, octopus. Thank you so much. I'm an octopus, ladies and gentlemen. Just kidding. But yeah, thank you for the super chat. I'm trying. I think most people are trying. And it's not easy to see. Maybe we have so much we just don't know and we should be looking into. And the least I'll say this, the least this book should do is make us a lot more careful and cautious before just die-hard blindly drawing a conclusion. That's what I would say. So even if at the end of the day, let's say Nina was incorrect about her book, about her hypothesis here, we should not be overly confident and asserting with absolute, like really strong confidence on what we think we know. Instead, be more cautious until we find better data that is absolutely nailing down what we think we know about Paul and when he wrote, and if these letters are authentic and all of that. Like, I'll give you an example. I think it was King Aretes that Paul is fleeing from, and he's being let down in a wall, in a basket, right? Where have we seen this before? Now, did Paul really get let down in a basket to escape? Well, we get this in Acts, but we also get this with Joshua in Jericho with Rahab. It's scripture. This story shows up in Paul's authentic letters. Are we to believe that he actually is getting let down in a basket in a wall to escape the harm that's going to come to him? Or is there possibly a good chance that this is part of crafting a narrative in Paul's own letters using scripture? I don't know. My Unfinished Journey. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hell Nero, Hell MythVision, and Hell Critical Scholarship. Amen to that, my friend. Amen to that. Thank you so much. Network Kenobi recently got Christianity and the Christian church of the first 3 centuries by F.C. Bauer, and the connection between Paul and Simon Magus is interesting. Yeah, so F.C. Bauer, that name appears a lot in the first chapter here of this book, I think, and the second. But she goes through the history of how this scholar particularly viewed Paul's letters and critiques it, showing why F.C. Bauer may actually be mistaken about some things. And I cannot remember everything because I was flying on a plane tired on my way to New Jersey and flying back tired on my way back to Florida. But F.C. Bauer, 100% gets name dropped a lot here. Simon Magus, not so much yet. I don't think, maybe a mention in passing because she has to address Acts and stuff. But the connection between Paul and Simon Magus, I need to investigate that more thoroughly. I have not really dug into that myself. Thank you so much, Network Kenobi. FOMO Sapiens, thanks for the super chat. Would love to see a discussion about the Joseph Osiris Serapis connection made in ancient Christian and Jewish writings. That sounds so intriguing because I do think, Hebrew Bible Joseph and Osiris, there's something going on there. I also would add the name Dionysus. Serapis needs to be added in there. There's so much interesting stuff with Joseph that I see crossover between them. Even from the Bible will often demythologize a narrative, and Genesis is doing a demythologized kind of creation story. Even in if you take the Genesis flood narrative, where right after that Noah is seen as naked, his son Ham sees his nakedness, so his offspring is cursed. A lot of rabbis thought that was a part where he castrates his father. but it doesn't explicitly say that. Now, why would they have thought there was a castration that happened here? Because when you look at other myths, like Kronos and others in the Greek stories, the person who's trying to usurp the power, the kingly position, castrates them, their junk is cut off, and they get cursed for that, or they try to curse them for that. And of course, sometimes they usurp them, like Zeus usurps Cronus and things like that. Cronus is trying to eat his children. So it's a demythologized form. Well, when you get to Joseph like has a metaphorical death more than once. One time he's thrown in a pit and then sold off to Amalekites or whoever they are that take them to Egypt. Another time when Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him, and then he ends up being thrown in a dungeon, which to me is like a metaphorical catabasis. He's going into the descent, and the rise always happens after the descent. Like Osiris, who gets, stuck in a coffin and sunk to the bottom of the Nile, and then his body is discovered by Set and cut into 14 pieces and spread all over Egypt, and Isis is traversing, wailing, looking and mourning for her husband, finds the pieces, puts everything back together except for the phallus, and resurrects him. Well, you get this kind of resurrection with Joseph in a way, where he then is at the right hand of Pharaoh in power. And you get this with Dionysus as well, and of course with Jesus. And I always mention this, but if you didn't see that observation, when Joseph was in the dungeon and you had the dreamer, he's the dreamer, right? With the baker and the wine bearer, I see the Eucharist. I see the proto-Jesus Eucharist here with the wine and the bread, the body and the blood, right here in the Joseph narrative. And he tells them in 3 days to the baker, your head's going to be off, put on a pike. The birds of the air, the fowls of the air are going to peck the flesh off your skin. It's going to be peeled off. You're going to be dead. 3 days to the wine bearer. You're going to be back in power with Pharaoh, being the wine bearer. And as that takes fruition, is fulfilled as he predicted, 3 days later, he says to the wine bearer, don't forget me. Remember me. And Jesus takes the bread and the wine and says, do this in remembrance of me. And so I see some stuff going on there. I also know that the mystery cults had these kind of sacred meals. So factoring all this stuff in, that would be a fun ride. I fish in a tie. Good to see you here. It's been a while. Look in the camera and tell us who took Dr. Tabor's Paul course. It was a waste of time and money. Tell us you won't ever do another Tabor course. I dare you. Sorry if you're so upset by this. Nobody said it's a waste of time and money. Dr. Tabor is a brilliant mind. So no, but I can see this sparked or triggered you and upset you. But again, this isn't the first time I fish in a tie where I've said things and you comment, super chatting, upset about things that I might say. And so I'm not here to upset you. I'm here to present to you, here is another scholar who wrote another thesis that is saying placing Paul's letters in the Roman literary context may actually radically change what we think we know about Paul's letters. Now, that being said, she could be wrong. But here's the thing. I'm trying to teach people who watch MythVision to not be stuck in a bubble, but to eat from a buffet. Don't have one restaurant you must eat from and only do that. No, the point is to listen to all of these different scholars and what they're saying and what they're thinking and why that reasoning is so. And then if you disagree with one, that's your prerogative. You have the right to do so. But I ask that you try to have a little thicker skin here because I'm on a journey exploring, and no one should be offended that Nina Livesey published a book that is questioning the authenticity of Paul, his letters, and whether or not these are epistolary fictions. So I just don't understand why that would upset you other than faith, personally. That's my only opinion. Maybe there's dogma in other areas that might have caused you to be a bit upset here, but no, I think people need to understand why the consensus is the way it is, what scholars say about it. I mean, I do not question 1 second Tabor's knowledge on Paul. He's been studying Paul's letters for like 40 years. That being said, when you listen to what she's saying about Paul's letters, if those 7 we just assume or grant are authentic using circular reasoning, then we might have questions we need to start asking ourselves, reevaluating the whole thing. So, my friend, I'm sorry if you were upset by what a scholar published, but I am interested in hearing the buffet. And that includes brilliant minds like Dr. Tabor, because Tabor goes way beyond and does things that I'm thankful he does that other academics won't do. Even going and exploring, for example, the tombs in Israel and questioning, what if we have discovered the family tomb of Jesus, his brothers and mother and father? Like, what if we have found that? You don't hear scholars doing things like that, and I appreciate him for that. So, again, thank you for the super chat. Sorry you were so upset. I hope that you won't be in the future as you continue to read beyond just one person and explore and learn from broadening your scope here. But that is my personal opinion here. I really, really think you should not be so sensitive to this. All right. The Daily Atheist Morning Show. Oh, I know this is a YouTube channel. I actually watch you guys some mornings when I'm drinking my coffee. The Daily Atheist Morning Show. Pulling it up here. Subscribing with my new channel. Let me share this bad boy out. It's called The Damn Show. Here we are. All right. I just shared it out there. Thank you so much. Hey, Derek, need to get you on the morning show one of these days soon. Abso-freaking-lutely, my friend. 100%. Let me know. Let's schedule it. Let's make it happen. Let's have some fun. Because you know me. I like to have fun. But yeah, I gotta do these more. I gotta hang out with you more because it's been a while since I've been on. And I really hope people will go subscribe. Here is the YouTube channel, The Daily Atheist Morning Show. Lots of cool, fun conversations. And if you're looking for something in the morning over a cup of coffee, eating breakfast, whatever, this is the spot. Have some fun. Go harass them in the chat and tell them that MythVision sent you. Thank you, my friend. Okay, Deconstruction Junction. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Love how you shake things up. Got me always buying books, Benny boy. Look, I am a shameless plug. I get it. I had to do this video. Like, it's just this is not only controversial, but it's something that I never studied. And I remember really going hard on a commenter who was questioning Paul's letters, and I was just coming at them sideways. It was right after I'd done my Steve Mason interview. I had all this confidence that I should just trust that these are for sure Paul's letters. And rather than being a bit more nuanced and cautious or saying, hey, look, I don't personally think that, but interesting. I'll check it out someday when I have the time or whatever. No, I came at this person sideways. And if you're that person, comment down below. I want you to piss me off. I pissed you off. You deserve it to do it back. Thank you for the super chat. And I appreciate the compliment, even though I hope that's a good thing that I'm shaking things up. Easy Shada, thank you for the super chat. Wasn't the rapture supposed to happen when Iran attacked Israel? Thought I heard that a lot when I was a kid. It was supposed to happen so many times in my 36 years of life, and it hasn't, obviously, and it won't. So, yes, it was supposed to happen. And we'll see more predictions of it going to happen. I mean, it sells. It's the whole idea sells. It gets people who want to believe things that are just not based on the evidence, hope and reason, and they like it. They want it. A lot of people want fake ideas. They want the absurd stuff. They like it. Dude Desi07. Hey, Shake. Oh, hey, Shake. Pronounced Shake here. What could we be wrong about regarding Paul, that is? So this was at 3:57. You must have just tuned in. In a nutshell, what if every letter we read in the New Testament is epistolary fiction, which means they are not actually Paul who wrote them. They were written by a school of Marcion or whoever that are in the name of Paul, and all of them are fictive. What if that's true? It would radically change how we view the New Testament. Who wrote first, Acts or the letters of Paul? We'd have to reevaluate a lot of things. And did Paul even exist? This is a question that she raises, at least. She doesn't die on the hill so far in the book on whether or not Paul existed, but she is reevaluating whether or not any of the letters are authentic. They may all be fictions. And if that's the case, I mean, you can see, like, we had a commenter or a super chatter earlier angry about it. Literally, like, if we were wrong about that, then imagine we found out. Let's play a hypothetical here for a second, right? Because we love confidence and intelligent academics and consensus views. And as long as this brilliant scholar agrees, it's easier to agree because brilliant scholars agree with me. That's the kind of angle that we take. What if we find out? Don't know how we would. Way above my pay grade on answering this question, but what if we found out that all of the letters of Paul are fake? Imagine we were able to somehow conclusively prove that that was most likely the case in all of the consensus. Now, or most of them, other than conservative religious types, come over to that and say, you know, actually, this makes more sense, and I think there may be something to it. We non-experts online, the 646 still remaining here in the live stream, that may not be PhDs. I imagine some of your PhDs and maybe even New Testament scholars tuning in right now. Can you see how lay people like me, I like to call myself an avid researcher. You could call me a professional researcher, if you will. Mainly, I'm a professional host, right? But I love researching this stuff, and I'm like an autodidact, and I end up watching all these scholars in my community of friends who point the finger at me when I make a claim about Hebrew Bible seeming to possibly have lifted its inspiration from Homer or something. And they're like, what? No, Canaanite or Mesopotamian only. Quit going beyond that to the Greek world. This is a Semitic language. It's not going to the Greek world. And, you know, I go outside of the consensus. I go into these controversial areas, but I see academics like Bruce Loudon and other scholars who echoed this sentiment. It's not the consensus, but they make sense. And then here I am reading Nina Lively, and I see, oh my gosh, what if these 7 authentic letters aren't authentic and they're really not real? And then the sway over the next 20, 30, 40 years, she's actually on the right track. And all the secular critical scholars start coming to that view. To people like me who go, okay, everyone wants to make sure the consensus agrees with me before they take a position. Like, I'm much less swayed by what the consensus says I must agree with. I do think, however, though, part of what we do as lay people is we need to know what the consensus thinks and why. We shouldn't just jump to fringe positions. Fringe, and I don't mean it derogatory, but like, we shouldn't just jump to positions without understanding why all of these scholars do think what they think. And then if you disagree with why they think what they think, go from there. So I say all that to say, what if the prediction now is in 20 or 30 years, people are going to get away from the 7 being authentic, and we start getting closer to maybe all of them being fictive, or maybe there's only 4 or 3, like the Dutch radicals thought the 4 were authentic, or maybe there's a kernel in these 7, or some of the 7 have a kernel and then they embellished and added to them. I don't know. But what if that change takes place? Will you be one of those people who sat back in 2025 and went, all right, what's everyone else think? All right, well, that's what I think. Or will you be one of those people who's on that, like, willing to research and listen to PhDs? It's not like I'm asking you to make up stuff that isn't actually academic. Listen to what the scholarship is arguing in alternative views that aren't consensus, and think about those things. That's how, I mean, maybe it's my contrarian spirit. Maybe it's I like to push the boundaries and maybe that's me. Okay, I'm guilty. But I don't want to be one of those. What's the tidal wave of everyone else think? Okay, now it's safe. Let me come to this position because everyone else agrees with me now. No. I see brilliant minds disagree on things that seem so obvious to me, like Steve Mason's argument about Acts being used or using Josephus. And again, Mark Goodacre was the name I was thinking of earlier. He's fully persuaded Steve Mason is right. Hugo Minnis, fully persuaded that Steve Mason's right. Like they think this is a no-brainer. It seems obvious. His argument is so good. Then Bart Ehrman comes in and he go, is Acts using Josephus? Nah, not persuaded. Bart Ehrman's a very big name. Very popular, very powerful figure in New Testament scholarship. If you don't agree with Bart Ehrman, something's wrong with you, right? See what I'm saying? I don't agree with Bart on this. I think that Steve Mason makes a great case. I may not know Greek myself, hoping to learn that over the next couple of years to be able to evaluate this material myself in the original tongue. But I am looking at that, and it's not like I alone. There are PhDs that think the same way. Now, is it the consensus that Acts uses Josephus? I don't know. I don't really give a shit, to be honest with you. I really don't. When a field is fraught with faith-driven, participants, and that plays a huge role in how people are evaluating this material, in my view. Okay, moving on. Callan Radu, thank you for the super chat and for being a MythVision member. Diseases, wars, natural hazards are all God's deeds. Satan just does orgies and metal bands. I needed this laugh. It is true that if you put Satan and God next to each other in the 66 books we have, God has a much larger fatality rate than Satan does, clearly. So he is in the business of taking out mortals far more than Satan. I think Satan wants people to turn stones into bread because they're hungry. You know what I'm saying? He might want a little worship. Okay. He might want you to light a candle to the Caesar. All right. He might just, I know that's very hard and it's going to hurt you pretty bad to light that candle, but God wants to put boils on your body and take your children from you. Don't worry. He'll bless you later, but he wants to kill the first kid you have. And then later he'll give you more and a new wife, by the way. I think that's what happens to Job. I think he gets a new wife that's better this time. I may be mistaken about the wife thing, but you see where I'm going. I'm being funny. Music by Artemis at Night. Thank you for the super chat. Longtime viewer. Love your work, Derek. Lots of mythology-based art and music on my channel if anyone is interested. Music by Artemis at Night. Music by Artemis at Night. Okay, I found the channel. Subscribing now. Posting it in the chat. Let's get some people to go subscribe. And there you go. I think there it is. Okay. Just subscribe. Let's see what we have here. Oh, do it this way. Make me small. All right. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Lots of fun stuff it looks like you got here. Oh, wow. Look at there is the orgy of Satan. He's an alien, ladies and gentlemen. Go check it out. He's also got the goat over here, come on, all the symbolism, it's the Illuminati. Thank you so much for the super chat. And thank you for showing me your channel. This is the first time I've seen it. And I just subscribed. Thank you. Dude, Desi07 is back again. Dude, love what you do. Thank you so much. I wish I had more free time to then watch your stuff more. Laugh out loud. By the way, have you ever thought of doing a collab with Godless Engineer, aka John? I have done a collab in the past, several, I think, with John Gleason from Godless Engineer. And if you didn't know this, we actually appeared in the New Yorker recently. I posted this on the community tab in my Discord. For those of you who haven't joined the Discord, be sure to do so. I pinned it in the comment section here. We ended up in the New Yorker. We got mentioned. There's a lot of names. Richard C. Miller got mentioned. Richard Carrier was mentioned. Robin Faith Walsh was mentioned. Canada Moss was mentioned. Elaine Pagels was mentioned. Gnostic Informant was mentioned. Godless Engineer. History Valley. Like a lot of us showed up in the New Yorker, and that's big news. We're moving places. Okay, next super chat. Dogs Domain, thank you so much for the super chat. What do you think of Our Lady of Zeton? Zeton. I probably butchered the name. We have pictures and testimony from people alive today, Muslims and Christians and agnostics. You know, is this that, correct me if I'm wrong, Dogs Domain, is this that Miriam apparition thing, or they thought they saw something? I could be mistaken here, but I'm kind of needing a little bit of help here, if you don't mind helping me out. Zitoon. I don't know about this. If this is this what's showing up on Cameron Bertuzzi's channel? Is this that thing? Help me out here, because if it is, I haven't done a deep dive. But of course, I start, if you're interested, glowing woman on top of a church roof. So I think Cameron Bertuzzi had a thumbnail about this. Correct me if I'm wrong, dogs, before I move on. I just want to give you my personal, how I approach things. I'm waiting. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. We will get to the next one here. I would imagine this is the Cameron Bertuzzi. He might have. I imagine it probably is. Because, look, I agree. If you're going to claim that an eyewitness thing and you have all these people marrying apparitions, go Catholic, Protestants. Go Catholic. So I'm very cautious about what people perceive or think they know. And even with memories, how people construct memories, all of these things I'm extremely skeptical about. Maybe they saw some phenomena. Maybe they saw some natural phenomena. Can't explain what it was. And I just haven't evaluated this particular case and looked into it. I say all that to say that when people see things, you really can't know exactly that they all are seeing the exact same thing. Like they all really know what they see is in direct alignment with each other. And I've got this coming up in an Easter video that we're doing, a documentary. Again, mentioning Stephen Ford. He helped write the script and he's editing the documentary now. But I am extremely skeptical before leaping to what I would say is the least likely position. And I'll give you an example, as I have a video editing right now about the Egyptian pyramids. People are really going wild about what's under the Khafre, I think it's Khafre pyramid in the middle of the Great Pyramids in Giza. Over a mile deep, there's this secret hidden construction of stuff that's underneath the bedrock of the pyramids, right? And I'm thinking to myself, there's a video that was just done by Ruslan. It has 1.3 million views in 7 days. Okay. And then he did another video that said 700,000 views in 3 days, 2 days. And I'm realizing really quickly that critical thinking skills are not how you win the golden ticket to views, to getting attention at all, period. Here's why. He disregards the alien hypothesis. He thinks they're interdimensional beings, right? And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, hey, let me talk to an Egyptologist. Hey, Karakuni, quick question. The claims that are going on underneath the pyramid, what do you think's happening with these radar scans, these SAR scans and stuff? And she's just even she's open-minded beyond typical consensus stuff in Egyptology. She thinks sometimes they're a bit rigid in the field. And she's like, they're built on bedrock. So you're trying to claim that they went into solid rock over a mile deep under the pyramid? And SARS, come to find out, the methodology used to scan the earth. To give you an example, I'm using this all for the eyewitness claim thing about where I am critical and how I approach things. That SAR scan cannot get through rock accurately beyond 1 to 3 meters. And they're saying they're thousands of kilometers or 2,000 kilometers deep in the earth, these structures, that these stars is somehow detecting? How is it detecting in solid bedrock over a mile deep? Where is our critical thinking at, ladies and gentlemen? Why is it that Ruslan can do a video talking about Genesis 6, Enoch, and then look at the pyramid and then make this wild claim without checking out geology, looking at Egyptology, checking out what actually is the case? I mean, so when someone makes a claim that, hey, these people, like I have questions about the super chat, for example, just to make the point, right? I'll give you an example of how I might approach this. We have pictures and testimony from people alive today, Muslims and Christians and agnostics. Okay. Well, if we ask the Muslims, what did they see? Will they say they saw Mary? Did they convert to Christianity because of it? Will they say this is a Christian figure? Did agnostics say, hey, you know what? I saw Mary. I mean, I'm being very cautious, even picking this apart to make a point. Like when you make a claim, I saw a UFO, I saw this, I saw that. I have questions. And I'm very cautious about just accepting. Maybe they did see a phenomenon of some sort. Maybe. I need to look at it, though. I haven't checked out the claims. But yeah, that's how I approach things. I'm very, very careful before I buy into a conclusion that seems like out of the ordinary, what doesn't seem to be the usual. And that applies common sense to me, that when you make those kind of claims that are a little bit like, whoa, a divine thing really happened, you got to be cautious. The Church of Korihor, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. For those who don't know, the Church of Korihor. Here we go. All right. Subscribing with my new channel here. Let me share this bad boy out. All right. I am going to butcher explaining the mythos of the Church of Korihor, but you really should subscribe to the YouTube channel. All I do know is that there was a atheist in, I believe it's the Book of Mormon. Go subscribe to the channel, but they identify with the name of Korihor because the character, the invented fictive character who did not believe, in the Book of Mormon, I believe it is, correct me if I'm wrong, but that character is who they're identifying with. He was a skeptic. He doubted Joseph Smith. He did not agree. It's almost like if we had a church of Thomas, you know, the Church of Thomas. We doubt the claims of the resurrection of Jesus. We don't believe this, but, you know, we're going to have a church surrounding this whole idea and be very critical of the claims of the resurrection. And therefore, they had a church setting that is actually in the vein of doubting the Christian message. The Church of Korihor is in this kind of vein here. So be sure to go subscribe to my friend. He's actually interviewed me on the channel. Let's see, where is it at? There I am. Look at this Step Brothers thumbnail, ladies and gentlemen. This is that Will Ferrell funny. We both wore our Christmas sweaters and stuff. So please go subscribe and show friend. Okay, here we go. I am just so upset about I Fish in a Tie's upset. How dare you? Hi, Derek. X-Mojo. Thank you so much for the super chat. Don't get upset. Some people, you know, this is a very touchy matter for them, right? I'm not offended by it. I'm just addressing it and saying, how dare a female academic push the consensus and try to test whether or not we're wrong about Paul's 7 authentic, really all of Paul's letters being fictive. How dare her? No, I mean, we should put it out there and really give it some attention and see what academics have to say about it. What kind of critical thoughts do they have? Why don't they agree? Or maybe they agree with some of it. I want to hear what they have to say. And again, the Church of Korihor, thank you again. I'm not calling Jesus Father, Dad, ever. Not even if there's a fire. So for those of you who haven't watched Step Brothers, Will Ferrell is in the back seat and his mom's in there. He's so mad. I'm not calling him Dad. I'm not calling him Father. Not even in a fire. And it's one of my favorite funny movies. Hank Fashi, thank you for the super chat. It would be cool to see if Dark Matter 2525 would discuss his stuff with you. Also, did you see the return in Ixnade, the mythic stuff, but still mythic? I don't know what that is. Ixnade, the mythic stuff. It would be cool. I'd love to have a chat with Dark Matter 2525, though. I've been watching his cartoon videos for years. Pretty funny stuff. But what are you talking about, IX Nade? Please help me out. Follow up if you're in the chat still, please. I hope. IX Nade got rid of? I got rid of. Okay, so let me reread that with the got rid of. It'd be cool to see if Dark Matter 2525 would discuss this stuff with you. Also, did you see the return got rid of the mythic stuff? The return got rid of the mythic stuff, but still mythic. The return. Are you? Oh, now I get it. Dude, okay, yes. The Return is a movie about the Odyssey. So if you haven't watched it, I think it's on Netflix. It may just be on Fandango. You can watch it on Fandango at home. It is a demythologized. Odysseus comes back from the war in Troy. He's disguised as an old man. He's not that old, but that dude is chiseled. Is he not? He's got like veins crawling out of his arm. Extremely defined actor. But I was disappointed. I'm not going to lie, Hangfoot. Like, I get it. The adventures are mythic when Odysseus is describing his adventures. But when he comes back, I was hoping that at the campfire or something, he was going to go, let me tell you what happened. And then give us some of that, Cyclopes. Give me some of that, the one-eyed Cyclops. Give me some of that Circe. Give me some of those adventures, because that's what really draws me in. Nah, it was just him back in the town. They don't recognize him, and he kills the suitors, right? I mean, clearly. But anyone who knows Homer's Odyssey knows that. But if you're looking for right now, that's holding us over until I think there's some really good production of the Odyssey coming in the next year or two, you could go watch The Return, and it gives you somewhat of the Odyssey. So check it out. The girl herself. Thank you so much for the super chat. Is this a YouTube channel? Let me just make sure. The girl herself. The girl herself. I see you do have a YouTube channel. I don't know if you want me to advertise it, but I'm thinking this is you, and it looks like it's you. Let me stick this in here for everybody to go subscribe. And I just put it in there. There is, I didn't share the screen. Might help if I have the shared screen up. The girl herself, subscribe to the YouTube channel. She's showing some love here, and it says, I love you, MythVision. I'm not a scientific materialist like many others. Quite the opposite, LOL. All I can say is they can't hide the goddess any longer. There's trickles of Sophia, Soul Mother surfacing. Look, I love entertaining the ideas that are kind of suppressed or changed over time. This is the way I put it. I think me and Neil share this, right? We don't care if everyone believes like us. Everyone's on their own journey. But what I don't like is when the narrative is suppressed or controlled, and you got to think like us, and you can't go beyond that. Once you expand beyond the single narrative of belief in this thing or that thing, the world is a playground of ideas and entertaining myths and legends and stuff. There's no place you can't travel, right? There's no place you can go where you can't have fun and enjoy looking and researching. That's how I feel about it. So thank you for the super chat. And I appreciate you showing love. Really do. Subscribe to the girl herself. Scrolling down. Stacy with the super sticker. Thank you, Stacy. I really appreciate the super sticker. Showing love. Welsh backgammon. The fictive Paul is not a very likable person. You know, this is one of my reservations. It doesn't prove anything, but it's a reservation of mine. You might share this with me, a little sympathy. Paul, in these letters, the 7 we call authentic, there's some times where it just sounds like a real pissed off dude who's trying to wiggle out of some problem. The problem, as you'll see, as she describes in this book, is that other fictional epistles convey that real authentic feel, that authentic verisimilitude, if you will, to reality. And they're writing in a manner that is believable. The goal when you're writing a fictive letter is to be believable. And she uses examples like there's letters between Seneca and Paul where they're writing each other. And we've already known that these are fake epistles. They're epistolary fictions. It's not really Paul and Seneca talking. But we can falsify those. Then we get to the New Testament and scholars realize these other letters aren't really Paul. And then we get to Paul's 7 and we go, don't touch them. Don't you dare touch my 7. And I'm like, woo, this is some hot stuff. Jester, thank you so much for the super chat. You want us to have a well-balanced academic diet? How dare you, I say, how dare. I mean, that's what I'd like, right? I would like to see people just reading the stuff and looking out beyond, just one vein of thought, because there are many schools of thought in different areas of New Testament scholarship, Old Testament stuff. It's not like everyone needs to think the one same thing. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, balanced academic diet. Maybe I am saying it. Maybe everyone needs a new diet, right? Thank you so much, Jester, for the super chat. The mother frickin' Wendyberg. Thank you so much for being the mother frickin' Wendyberg. I appreciate the super chat, seriously. And recently joined your Patreon. Love what you do. Thank you for joining the Patreon. That means a lot to me. In fact, it was such a downer recently that I ended up spending 3 weeks to a month editing a documentary that kind of flopped. It just did not get the viewership that I was hoping it would, because that's how you monetize. That's how you can provide for your family. You need the views. And maybe it's the topic. Maybe not many people realize just how enigmatic baptism really is. So when you say the mystery or the truth or the shocking truth about Jesus' baptism because you need a catchy title to get attention, and then people are not actually evaluating that video to realize just how really deep and interesting the whole idea of baptism really is. It just sounds like, oh, guy dunked in water. Skip. Who cares? Jesus got baptized. Skip. There's way more to the baptism of Jesus than people realize. And it sucks because all that time, the Patreon actually helps me to be able to work on doing things like these documentaries and well-polished videos. If it weren't for your support, I just would not be able to do it. I'm not even kidding you. I just have to live doing live streams and living off of super chats and trying my best to make it. And so I do appreciate you for being the mother frickin' Wendyberg that you are. Thank you. Greg Royce, am I saying that right? I've been watching Bart's YouTube. He's acknowledged later dates for Acts. He's not fully persuaded, but he's acknowledging it as a legit position. That's good. That's good. Seeing a change in Bart is good. I remember reading, or not reading, but interviewing some of his students who were like, Bart's still stuck in 1980 something or whatever in some of these views. And, it's hard to make a leopard change their spots on some things, but he did come around, I think, on realizing in his view, he thought that the empty tomb narratives were legend. Like there was no real empty tomb. He used to think there was, and he changed his mind about that. So that's good news, right? Change is always good. Do Desi07, do you take video response requests or video review requests? If so, how much would you charge? That's an interesting question. I've never had anyone ask me that. What I was thinking about doing, in fact, I'd like to have a vote, if you don't mind, with this super chat. This comes up with an idea. If you would be interested in seeing me have a reaction channel where I react, let's say I decide I'm going to react to mainly biblical stuff and Christian apologetics and stuff like that, but also maybe popular level stuff that you see out there dealing with Bible and Christianity, press 1. Because if I did a reaction channel, that would be really cool. Like if you thought that would be a great thing for me to have, is like a reaction channel where I'm reacting to stuff and just giving my thoughts on it, press 1. If not, press 0. If you're like, nah, no reaction channel. If you want a reaction channel, press 1. I'm interested to see. Let's see. We got some ones already. One, 420 in the house. That's a lot of ones. That's 421s. Oh, man. Yeah, I want to do more interviews too. So we got one naysayer here. Don't worry. I'm going to be doing those as well. That's not going to stop. Someone said 2. I'd love to see you do reaction channel 1. Do it. Hey, do it. Okay. So I was thinking about doing that because it's kind of easy to react to people. Kind of easy, and it's not too much work. So I've thought about that. It'd be really cool to kind of react to some of these wild things out there and give my 2 cents. I want interviews too. Don't worry, everybody. Don't worry. Yeah, look, I get it. I get it. Some of the naysayers in here, but a lot of people would like to see it. Maybe we'll see it happen. Maybe, just maybe. Stay tuned. I'd like to make something like that happen. Be pretty cool. Take a little bit of the stress off me here in that area, and then we could deal with the recordings. Because I'm trying to read. Look, I got this book. I'm trying to finish this book. I've got James Table wrote a really interesting book that gets into the idea. What if, don't be mad at me, everybody. What if Jesus was technically like purposely suiciding? Okay. He wrote this a long time ago. He's not the only one who thinks this way, or at least thought this way in this book. But like he intentionally went to die, which we already know the narrative seems to paint that. But like this was something martyrs did intentionally, purposefully went and made sure he got killed. Death by cop, so to speak. And Jeffrey Tripp, a modern New Testament scholar, is also writing on that. So I want to read that book next and have conversations with James on his book. Lots of ones, though. You got me thinking here. Okay. Next super duper chat. Where are we at? We went with the mother freaking Wendy Berg. Greg Royce. Video response. I think if be easier if I had like maybe like a review, right? You're talking about review request. Well, once I start that channel, I don't think it would be a charge necessarily. I just want to just review stuff and bring you guys some good material. Captive Desk, thank you for the super chat. Congrats on the shout out. I host Saturday night at The Atheist every Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern at Captive Desk. You're welcome to join us sometime, Derek. Captive Desk. Let's see what we got here. Captive Desk. Okay, I see the desk. I see the captive. Subscribe. Let me put this joker in the chat so everybody else can get their gnosis. All right. Here we go. Here's the YouTube channel. Subscribe to Captive Desk. Be sure to do that. Show love to the fam here, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And you said I could join sometime. Look, I'm in the Discord every once in a while. You can tag me, but I am in my Discord. I try to stay rooted there, and I'm on the Patreon. So if you really want to get my attention, and we can try and make something happen, you can contact me there. You can email me, and I will try my best to make something happen for you. Like I do try to make it on channels that aren't my own. Dogs Domain, have you been to the Modern Day Debate Convention? I have not. My buddy Neil did. He took a debate last minute on Islam versus Christianity, and then he did some other thing with this Andrew Wilson guy that something to do with Christian nationalism or something. Mike G, thank you so much for the super chat. Your 3 best arguments for Jesus mythicism. Best arguments, so I'd have to like still man the mythicist position. For me, it would be probably arguing that you can find almost everything you need in Scripture. And so could they have constructed this angelic kind of divinity slash lesser Yahweh in Scripture? You get these weird Judaisms floating around with Enoch and stuff and Second Temple Judaism. So you kind of wonder, did they craft or construct this revelatory Jesus, this Christ, all from Scripture? As you see, it seems that's something that I think that Richard Carrier might posit there. The other thing is if we grant the chronology that Paul's letters are first, Paul is just very silent on Jesus, his life, anything important about his ministry in the real world. Some have disputed over a few sayings that he thinks that the Lord said, as if Jesus on earth said them. Maybe he said them as an apocalypse within Paul. Who knows? On the night he was handed over, he said, well, that could have been some apocalypse within Paul. So I'm just giving something here. And then the other thing about this would be, I would say you might go with the mystery cult angle. Like, if you can show me many other mystery cults where the figure is a historical figure in the center, then maybe I would change my mind. But like, I do think that Paul's cult described in these letters looks like a mystery cult. He uses the word mysterion, which is literally mystery language you get in Plato, talking about the mysteries of Orpheus and Dionysus and stuff. And their central figures didn't exist historically. They may have believed they existed, but they were invented. So is Jesus just a Joshua angelic figure? I don't know. I would say those are my three best, constructed from scripture, constructed from internal, maybe even made up by Paul inside as a cult leader, claiming he's having internal revelations. And then three would be comparing it to other mystery religions at the time, where their central mythic origin figure, Attis, Dionysus, Orpheus, Demeter, Persephone, I mean, they did not exist. Ion, these are gods that are fictive. They do not have any actual historical basis in reality. What do you do with the Gospels? Now, that's a whole nother question. But that would be my three best arguments right now off the top of my head. I haven't been told to stillman mythicism in a while, but I hope that did a damn decent job, at least, of granting what seems to be... tell me, if you're a mythicist in the chat, was that decent? I don't know. I'd like to see. Actually, if you're a mythicist, I have lots of mythicist fans who watch. Tell me, type out one if you're a mythicist, if that was a decent, if you would agree with those three. And if you don't, then type 0. But only mythicist vote. So if you're a mythicist, vote right now and tell me. Tell me. I'm watching the chat right now. I am Theophilus. I'm learning Koine Greek. Well, actually, I'm learning modern Greek and engaging with going to be learning the ancient Greek along with it. But I want to have a living language that I can talk, like actually speak in the modern times. So I'm going to do both. All right. Is anyone in the live chat a mythicist? Anybody? Help me out. So we got one. Okay. I'm turning red. Probably because I need water. I need some water. Okay, we got a mythicist here. I'm a mythicist. Someone said sort of. Of course, I'm not going to spend 10 minutes trying to elaborate, but a lot of times you can almost find everything you need in scripture to construct the guy, right? Carl Ruck, Mandy Moorhall said, is a mythicism, and he is smarter than you. Carl thinks it's just a story, which, if you take the mystery cult route, that here are these narratives, the Gospels, which are metaphors, they're allegories for the deeper truth, the mysteries that are really there. So the introductory initiates would just have these public stories that everyone can read, but the true secrets, the hidden mysteries, those are for people in the actual cult. And you don't just write those public. There's a lot of different views on this. So, okay. Someone said they're kind of a mythicist. Yeah, I need the water of life. I am Inanna. I'm hanging on the wall like a hook right now. Pine Martin, thank you so much for the super chat. A beautiful song by the Chinese pop star Hua Chenyu is called Ship of Theseus. It's sung in Chinese but has English subtitles. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to check that out after the stream when I get a chance. Thank you for the super chat. Hank Fashi again. Do you think baptism might have some connection to the ancient Near Eastern combat myth, Yahweh vanquishing Tehom, Tiamat sort of thing? It is hard to say what it is for sure. It wouldn't shock me, right? it would not shock me if it had some relevance to that. I say that because if you take Mark as a mimetic connection to Moses, and Moses is traveling through the sea with his people into the wilderness, which is the next scene, right? I mean, like literally Jesus goes directly into the wilderness for 40 days, mimicking the 40 years that they had to travel in the wilderness. The language for the waters being separated in the Red Reed Sea, which I've actually heard some academics say it means like the further outermost water of the edge of the world. So it's a mythic waters. That's in Joshua Bowen's book, The Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament. Really interesting read. But if it is mimicking that, then yeah, it is kind of a creation motif, right? It's a decreation, creation motif where here's the new creation beginning. They're going through the waters into the wilderness. Jesus is tempted for 40, days, stuff like that. So that water is like Tiamat. It is the Tehom. It is chaos. It is Yam. It is Leviathan, right? And then you get this waters in Revelation, the Apocalypse of John, where there will be no more waters. No more waters. And that chaotic dragon that comes up out of the waters. So yeah, I do think there's a good case to be made that it is that. But I'd also even say, I want to take it a step further and say the waters represent death. The dragon, the beast, that final monster is death itself. And you, the believer, this is a mythic model for the initiate to enter into the water, to be baptized into the mysteries, the sacred mysteries, to go into the grave, to go into the tomb, and to go into Sheol like Jonah, swallowed by the fish, into the depths of the waters. And just as he was there for 3 days and 3 nights, so shall the Son of Man in the heart of the earth. Well, you too will rise again, being divinized. Jesus is not coming out of the waters going, thanks for that purification, right, my Jewish buddy, John the Baptist. High five, buddy. Now I'll go on. I'm just, thanks for the purification. No, the heavens rupture, a bird descends, and literally the voice speaks to Jesus, right? And he says, you are my son. So he's adopting him as his beloved son, becoming a son of God at that very moment in baptism. And you, the believer, I think that's the point of Mark. I think you, the believer too, just like Paul's letter, have been clothed with Christ, immortality through that baptismal initiatory kind of experience. So there's layers to the baptism that even my 3-hour, 6-minute documentary just doesn't quite cover, if that makes sense. I hope that made enough sense, but I definitely think you're onto something, and there's so much more. I mean, even when we go to like Ahura Mazda and we go into Zoroaster, like Zoroaster, his divine calling and mission happens at the age of 30 at a body of water, a river, by the way. And at that moment, he then, like, the heavens open, a divine revelation, and the beginning of the apocalypse is starting. He's starting the timetable of the end. And I don't know, the problem with the Zoroastrian sources is like, how early is that source that's happening? Is it influenced by Christianity later? Or does this reflect an earlier Near Eastern myth where a very important figure is divinely called at a body of water at the age of 30, and now he's on his mission? And what does the body of water represent? Death, chaos, disorder, the old age, Leviathan, the dragon, right? All of these things, I think, are symbolic of water. And Jesus is overcoming. Immediately tempted by Satan. There's Roman imperial language. The dove coming down might be combating the eagle, the Aquila, with the Roman imperial stuff. This can never end. And sorry for such a long-winded answer, but I literally just did this documentary, so it's like kind of fresh and interesting to me. And I'm actually flabbergasted that we didn't have like hundreds of thousands of people flock and realize what's going on in that documentary. But maybe the next one, maybe the next documentary, they'll appreciate, and we can get some attention to it. Thank you for that super chat, Nitty. Do reactions with other creators and panels. Well, I would like to do that and have people participate in those. It's depending on their time, of course. The one thing about this, I'm hoping as I research more, reaction channels can get away with reacting to like videos and like playing them longer than I think channels like what I'm doing right now with MythVision. The reason is it's a different kind of channel that is like purposely reacting to other materials. And my thing is it'll need to be monetized. But the problem is that when I've done video reactions to stuff, they shut off your live stream and everything. You have to literally fight and say, look, no, this is fair use. I'm literally reacting to. And I think that if my channel was aimed at that, like a whole separate channel just reacting to material, then it would probably be a successful channel. And I'd like to do that. I would like to make that happen, Nitty. Maybe you can participate with me sometime and react. Thanks for being a member and for super chatting. I really appreciate the love, bro. Ben Jones, is it me? But it seems that Christians run to Paul instead of Jesus whenever the discussion on works versus faith about Jesus is brought up. Thoughts? Well, this rocked my brain enough to be like, I don't know. I'm going to have to reevaluate how I understood some of this stuff. But I don't even think Paul in all his letters seems to be saying works versus faith as if like the way that Protestants interpret this. There's works of the law, like Torah observance, and Paul clearly is riffing against that. Don't worry about circumcising your pecker. Do not worry about what you eat, Jim Bob. You can literally eat what you want, right? It's meat sacrificed to idols. The idols are nothing anyway. Don't worry about it, you know? Those works of the law, I think Paul's clearly against, and I think that's what he means by works. So we Protestants have kind of reinterpreted these things to fit an idea that, like, you even have Calvinists, I know because I was one, who go so far to say, like, if I make the intuitive effort to try to believe in Jesus, that's works. Because I did it, and it wasn't monergism. God did not make the faith happen. I tried to believe, and because I made the attempt, it was man's effort to believe, and because man did any work at all to try. That's so insane. What I used to believe was insane, honestly. That's how ridiculous that kind of interpretation goes. So I think that we're all trying to understand Paul. I just think that a lot of times Christians are running with a traditional understanding and interpretation on Paul, anachronistically interpreting Paul through their modern Arminianism versus Calvinism versus in-betweenisms. And that's how they understand Paul. But Paul, I think, is talking about the law, Judaism law, and how that applies to non-Jews, Gentiles, the nations, ta ethne. And I think it's radical because when you read Jesus, he's fulfilling the law. So the tug of war is this. Well, we want to be like Jesus, don't we? Well, what did Jesus do? Well, Jesus was circumcised. Jesus kept Torah. He may not have been as strict according to the law as some, where he would eat on Sabbath or pick, fruit and food on the Sabbath or do little work on the Sabbath, stuff like that. But he kept the Sabbath. Oh, we Christians, if we're going to be like Jesus, need to keep the Sabbath. So there's like this never ending, I got to be like Jesus, but really I got to be like Jesus in light of Paul and listen to Paul. You see the struggle? I hope that makes sense, because Paul is saying, no, you don't need to do these things. You're a non-Jew and you can be part of Abraham's family by the Spirit. And the others who are his opponents, clearly combating in this letter, whoever they are, now that this bubble of mine might be popping, I don't know. They're saying, no, you must keep the law. And Paul's fighting against this idea, telling his Gentile audience, you do not need to circumcise. You do not need to keep kosher. You do not need to do this and do that. Look, the law of Christ is enough. If you believed in Jesus, his efforts, his crucifixion, faith, pistis in that, the knowledge of the Lord in Jesus, if you're in Christ, then the works of the law are dead. You do not need to do those works of the law. Christ did it for you. That seems to be what I'm reading. Exa Music, thank you for being here and seeing you in the Discord. Like you and Hang Fashi, like there's a bunch of you that are always in the Discord. I appreciate you being there. So you said, did everyone see the New Yorker article? We're still not done with Jesus. MythVision was mentioned, as well as Carrier, Robin Walsh, and Elaine Pagels. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we were in the New Yorker. I am fortunate enough to get mentioned. It makes me proud. I'm very happy. Yeah, I'm thankful. I'm hoping we get mentioned more in the future and do more great things to bring this information to the public. Again, it came out of nowhere. And what are the odds that it came at a time when I was literally in the office at Elaine Pagel's house? So I just left New Jersey. We recorded for 3 days, and me and Ryan, we hung out with Elaine Pagels. And Ryan and her were bonding over makeup and girl stuff. And I'm just hanging out there getting cameras set up and trying to get recordings done. And the next thing you know, I get this message from James Tabor. And he says, D, you're in the New Yorker. What? I'm in the New Yorker? What do you mean? And he's like, check it out. So you could tell James Tabor is really all over stuff. He's reading all the time. And I read it and I was like, we're doing some big things here with MythVision. That's a good thing. Making noise. Dudesi07. I'm just saying Dudesi at this point. I hope I'm pronouncing that. I think you probably wanted it that way, but I could be wrong. I think you should bring Shia Muslim scholars like Sheikh Yasser al-Habib and Amr Nashawani on to discuss controversial topics such as Sunni and Shia conflict and differences. I would love that. I seriously would love that. For me, I know a lot of people in the West, man. We have such this antagonistic portrayal of Islam. It doesn't help. You know, there's a lot of bad things that have happened. No joke. We get it. But when you actually are secular, you're researching and you're looking into the history of this stuff, you're researching how it began. It's a fascinating research. It's a fascinating religion. Not because it's true, not because I believe it. I just love studying how this religion ended up conquering a lot of the world and its beginnings, what its literature says. What's up with the Shiite-Sunni split? Why does one group contend that you know his favorite wife wasn't faithful, potentially, Aisha, and the other group is saying she was? I'll leave you with this. This is an interesting observation too. I have several critical, secular, early Islamic scholars that I'm in contact with, and I ask them about this Aisha stuff, right? Like a lot of Muslims believe she was 9 years old because some of the sources say that. Some of the earlier sources say that. Are those sources believable? Are they accurate? Is the question I have. Because if we're going to be historically investigating, we need to know, like, should we trust these sources? Well, one of the scholars I talked to pointed out that in that time, and we could pull up the law codes. I sent this stuff to Neil. There's a bunch of law codes, even in Christian Europe, where they were still marrying off 9, 11-year-old girls to men. Like Christian Europe in the 1700s, 1800s, not 1400 years ago. We're talking a couple of centuries ago. Christians were doing this. And in America, by the way, in the South, there were 7-year-olds being married off to keep the dynasty of their households intact. Well, what do you think is going on with Muhammad and Aisha? Anyway, here's the point, though. There is such a jab at Aisha in early Muslim sources by this Sunni Shia division, it seems, that some of them wanted to make sure that she was as young as possible so that the accusations that she was married and lost her virginity to the prophet were as early as you can go. So it would be propagandistic to make her as young as you can, according to the culture that would allow her to be that young and marrying the prophet. Meaning, historically, we don't even have a clue how old she really was. We don't even have a clue how old Muhammad was when he married her. According to the tradition, because of the rift between Shiite and Sunni Muslims, they want one side is pushing her date as young as she possibly can because the other side is saying, nope, sexual scandal, and they're trying to defame her. And that I hope to cover that with Dr. Joshua Little at some time. He wrote his PhD dissertation. It's like 600 or 700 pages of evidence of the hadith and the tradition. And I'm just like, bro, this is so wild. Like, I get it. You know, nobody's trying to justify today the idea of underage marriage with girls, period. Not me. And if a Muslim is, they need to be called out, because their problem, the Christian apologists who are antagonistic to them as well, is their problem is with modernity, not with Islam. Christians practice this too. Jews practice this too. Like, this is not like a Muslim problem alone. This is a problem universally. Humanity had this problem. And if we educate ourselves, I think we'd have a little less Islamic hate in that way. You don't have to like the religion, don't get me wrong. I'm not like saying I'm a fan of Islam, but I'm also not like, I don't hate Muslims. I don't have this antagonistic chip on my shoulder either. They've never been a problem for me. I have had a few emails in the past from being critical, but I want to know what the hell is going on, right? And not just in an antagonistic fashion. I want to do a historical research, not a dick measuring contest between David Wood and Sheikh so-and-so. I mean, like, no, especially when you watch these guys so uncritically evaluate their own worldview. Like, for me, I'm happy to say, man, I don't have it figured out. I could be wrong. Atheism could be wrong. Some days I'm agnostic. Some days I wonder if there's something more. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm okay with poking holes in my own worldview. I don't pretend I have all the answers. But there's some Christians who demand you have to have the correct, perfect, epistemic, everything figured out, and then you can explain everything. And I just don't work that way. I start with what we know and what we can test and using good methodology, because I don't think anyone has all epistemology figured out and knowing all of that. So what a hell of a rabbit trail I went from interviewing Shia Sunni, talking about Aisha, the age she was when she married Muhammad needs to be questioned. It's very doubtful that we know really when she was. It's still not pretty in modernity, right? But we're also judging pre-modernity by modernity standards, and we have to keep that in mind when we're evaluating history or traditions and things like that. Okay. Let me shut up on that. Let me keep moving. Daniel Whitaker, thank you for being here, always being here. You're a member, been here for a while. Seriously, hit that like for mythicism. Hit the like button. Look, I think I want to ask you a question, audience, and you can press 1 or press 0. 1 if this is yes, and then 0 if you disagree. Let me get to the contemporaneous comments here. Okay. For someone who thinks there probably was a historical Jesus, though some days I don't know, right? I really don't. And I don't think it's that. At this point, if there wasn't, it wouldn't change anything. At this point, if there was, it wouldn't change anything, in my view. Either way, people are going to believe what they're going to believe or not believe what they're not going to believe. But for a person who was a mythicist, leaned into there probably being a dude, to some days not knowing if there is, but most of the time I think there probably was, cannot prove it. Would you say I've done a fair job? Yes is 1. 0 is no. A fair job of at least still bringing the conversation to the table. Mythicism is at the table. It's conversation that is there. It is engaged. I am trying my best to be fair and actually presenting it and allowing people like Dr. Richard Carrier to come forward with it. Or do you think I've done a horrible job? And if so, if you type in 0, I would love to get, like, who's done a better job that believes there was probably a dude in bringing mythicism to the table. I'm interested. I'm curious, because if they did, I'm jealous. I want to know. I'm competing against that person. Help me out here. Help me out. Okay, got some 1s. That makes me feel good. Feel pretty good. Some people pissed off at me that I even allow mythicism at the table. I'm not going to lie. Like, I get comments all the time. Why are you even allowing them? Like, that's literally, and I'm like, what do you mean? like, I don't know why it's such a problem to think there could have probably not been a Jesus. I don't know. Yes, I have. I've covered a little bit of things that make me think there probably was, but again, it wouldn't persuade someone who's probably already persuaded more on the mythicist side or not. Joe Brand with the 0. Burtnell Mac. Burtnell Mac. Hold on. Is that do they have a YouTube channel? Burton L. Mac. I thought that was an academic. Who wrote the New Testament? Burton L. Mac. I see a titled video, Burton L. Mac. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was an academic, Burton L. Mac. Thank you so much for Rand name. I'd love to know who brings it better. Anyway, thanks for those comments. Let me keep going because I feel like I'm never getting through these, and probably need to get some food in me shortly. You know, I don't want to die on video. Like, I've actually thought about that too. Like, what if I was streaming and in the middle of streaming, I'm just like, thank you so, and I just like in the middle of a stream, and then like someone's like calling 911, but like I'm like over here in a seizure, and like nobody's there to help, nobody's around because I didn't eat. I died from not eating. All right. Thank you for liking Daniel Whitaker. Innate Ultrera. Utrera. Forgive me for the butchering the name. Thank you for the super sticker, my friend. S. Mill, thank you again. The Jews are saved because when Moses went through the Red Sea, he got his feet wet. Archie Bunker. Thank you so much for the super chat. Again, Jesus is clearly modeled Elijah, Elisha, Moses narratives in Mark. And you might as well go back into Paul in much of this, probably. I would imagine. Remember that strange passage in 1 Corinthians 10 where he talks about Christ was the rock in the wilderness that they struck in the water of life. The water came out. It's so weird how he reinterprets it. But even in Paul, you get this, right? Using the standard model of Paul we've all understood, you get this idea that Christ is there in the wilderness with them. So, interesting. Dudesi08, prefer going by my name, Sheikh. Okay. Sheikh, I hope I can remember that every time. By the way, you will find the differences in the Shia and Sunni hagiography of the prophet fascinating. I know I will because I get into this stuff. I like to learn these differences. I know a lot of my fans do too. It's in the same Abrahamic tradition, and learning these things is an eye-opener to see how different movements evolve and how they do their own little spin of things. It's almost like an anthropological study in a way. Thank you, Sheikh, for the super chats. I will do my damnedest with the brain that is in this skull to remember to call you Sheikh the best I can. Forgive me if I mess up. And Daniel Whitaker again says, another channel I support is Demystify Psi. Would you consider speaking to the Bible's negative influence on sciences? I think a good amount of modern bias in most fields can be tied to dogma. I agree with that. Would you consider speaking? Let me pull up Demystify Psi first to subscribe. Demystify Psi. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know if I did, but either way. Okay. Demystify Psi has 24,500 subscribers. There is the YouTube channel right there. So go subscribe. Let's put it here. Since you showed them some love in a super chat, I try to show love. Okay. Everybody got that? All right. Now you asked, would you consider speaking to the Bible's negative influence on the sciences? Well, I would, again, the Bible is portraying an ancient Near Eastern cosmology for the most part. If we're lucky, you might get some glimpses of Hellenistic thought of science, maybe, into the later materials, late Second Temple Judaism, New Testament stuff, maybe. But even then, that's questionable on whether or not they've accepted the globe model that you find 500 years earlier Greek philosophers actually already started coming to. Pre-Socratic scientists, they're called philosophers, but they were really doing science back then, like legit bona fide science. And I would say that look at today. I mean, look at believers, which you bring up in the Super Chat dogma, who are dying on that cosmology, who are against evolution, who are against the models of the earth being spherical or various other issues. They might be against the way a man and a woman operate in society. The man must be in control of the woman. She must keep her mouth shut. He is the head, because Christ said that Christ is the head of man and man is the head of the woman. Like just how we treat each other and how we go about functioning societies, that plays a role. But by the way, the Bible is not exclusive in this. Roman society had this patriarchal issue in that sense. There's a lot of stuff. But if we're dealing with science, specifically dealing with like cosmology, our origins, how we behave sexually. I mean, golly, we can't just blame just the Bible too. You got to get into like Platonic philosophy. You have to understand how asceticism comes in and Christianity absorbs some of this stuff. Eunuchs are mentioned. Good luck finding that applicable to the temple. You know, if your nuts were crushed in the Old Testament, you cannot enter into the precinct of the God, period. Get the hell out of there with those coconuts. Those are crushed, defiled. If you've got any leakage, get out of here. But like the New Testament is adopting the eunuch stance, and it's like praising the eunuch. The legends of Paul being killed, like I mentioned earlier, for like telling the husband or the wives not to sleep with their husbands because it's icky, it's fleshy, it's sin. Yeah. Again, it's dogma though, because there are people who read the Bible who don't interpret it that way, who reinterpret it, and they have a different model. They find a way to make the circle of the earth becomes, oh, the earth is a sphere, instead of it being the flat disc that the earth is, and that round, hard firmament that waters above. Like clearly they find ways to wiggle out of the problems. Oh, don't worry, evolution? Shh. Yeah, we've been evolving for billions of years. However, God just decided one day to choose one man to put a soul into. So you're digging up all these corpses of everyone 7,001, I'm just making up a number here, 7,001 years ago. Yeah, that guy didn't have a soul, so how he died doesn't matter. Who gives a damn? But the guy 7,000 years ago, named Adam, he had the soul. And therefore, from that moment onward, like there's people who come up with all sorts of stuff. I do think it hinders us in many ways when we are needing the Bible to make sense historically. It hinders us from being accurate with history. There are double standards on how we approach other things. But your question was science. And I imagine there's many, many other problems like taxonomy. How do we understand species of animals? Birth, like women's anatomy and giving birth. The man is the one who's actually, the child is produced by the man. The woman is just the oven. So she can be barren or she can produce. And she's just the one bringing to fruition the man's seed. So life is all dependent on the man's sperm. Like there's some outdated stuff that I've even heard Muslims try to argue some of these things, that the Quran has a miracle, scientific miracle or something. And I can't remember the exact argument right now. I'm fried. Been going now 2.5 hours. It's been a while since I've ate. Yes. Dr. Robert M. Price, it was and is also a Paul agnostic, if I remember correctly. Yes. And he also has been echoing for the longest these sentiments that she actually brings in this book. So that is, it's like full circle for me in my mind. I'm like, huh. Okay. Scrolling up here. Where am I at here on Super Chats? Forgive me. Oh, here we are. Shake, thank you so much for the super chat. Want to bring David Icke on as a guest, Derek? Isn't David Icke like the guy who's like spaceship stuff, like alien UFO stuff, like hardcore? And he's like hyper conspiracy level, isn't he? Like I'm talking like what's that guy who does that? Alex Jones level stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think reptilians. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So now we're getting into I'm not interested in that. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, because little does he know, I am a reptilian, and I don't want him to find out that I am. And if he talks to me, he'll know that truly I'm from the sons of God back in Genesis 6. Those Nephilim, my great granddaddy was one of them. So don't tell anyone. Please don't keep that our little secret. I don't want him to know. Because if he did, I might have like Secret Service at my door. Thank you so much for that. The mother freaking Windyberg. Thank you so much for the super chat. I love saying that name. I really love saying that name. I love how you and Neil bring the historical knowledge, yet still leaves room for spirituality and magic. Who am I to, right? Like, who am I to like tell you you shouldn't think this way or shouldn't hold some of this stuff interesting or sacred or believe in certain things? Look, I personally am skeptical. I am probably more skeptical than Neil. We talk about this all the time. But I understand that I don't have everything figured out either. I don't pretend that I do. And I don't dictate. Like, imagine if I had a world where all I wanted is, are you also methodologically critical of everything and don't believe that this is the case or this is the case? Okay, now we can talk. Like, no. My entire family believes in God. I don't think there's another atheist in my family. Like, I don't think there's a single person in my family who doesn't believe and believe in spiritual, even miracles, that kind of stuff. I'm like the only guy who's like kicking against the goad. You know what I mean? And that's okay too. They've accepted that. They accept me. Why the hell can't I accept them? Why would I have to sit here and destroy people's playgrounds because I'm critical of them? If we have the conversation, sure, they allow me to jab and be critical, but I love them for that. And I think that diversity is good because we're just trying to make it. We're just trying to make it. The world is a hard place to live in. And yeah, usually people who believe those kinds of things or are open to spirituality also aren't asshats. And they're not trying to coerce you into their belief system. And they're not trying to politically gain control and force everyone to be like them. They're not. That's just not how people who are typically spiritual or believe in stuff that I personally question and am far more scrutinous about saying, I'm not going to believe until I actually know more, have actual data, right? That's just my personal stance. I think that Neil feels the same way. Barry Tefera, thank you so much for the super chat. Would appreciate your thoughts on the scientific interpretation of Isaiah 21. Let me pull this up because I don't remember what this is. And thank you for that last super chat. I really appreciate it because it, to me, is like a badge of honor as someone who's critical of this stuff. I am critical. I am skeptical. I'm skeptical of spirituality. I'm skeptical of magic. I'm skeptical of the Bible. But I'm also trying to not be so hostile that you can't like get along with people you disagree with. That's ridiculous to me. And it feels like a good thing that I can be someone who holds a position, but others feel comfortable being able to participate and being part of the community and holding to a different stance. Like, who the hell am I? Honestly. Isaiah 21. Here we go. Let me share my screen so everyone else can join me on this adventure. Oh, I almost committed the unforgivable. Crossbible.com. If you're going to look at the Bible, you got to do it at crossbible.com because that's my buddy, Stephen Nelson. He is teaching Greek. I accept all cookies. All right. We're going to Isaiah. Am I missing something? Here it is, 21. Okay. We're going NIV. I hope that's okay. Now, you said Isaiah 21, and this is a scientific interpretation. Okay. A prophecy against the desert by the sea, like whirlwind sweeping through the southland, an invader comes from the desert, from a land of terror. A dire vision has been shown to me. The traitor betrays, the looter takes loot. Elam attack, Media lay siege. I will bring to an end all the groaning she caused. Okay, we're talking about ancient locations in the desert. At this, my body is racked with pain. Pain seized me. Like those of a woman in labor, I'm staggering by what I hear. I'm bewildered by what I see. My heart falters. Fear makes me tremble. The twilight I longed for has become a horror to me. They set the tables. They spread the rugs. They eat. They drink. Get up, you officers. Oil the shields. This is what the Lord says to me. Go, post a lookout and have him report what he sees. When he sees chariots with teams of horses, riders on donkeys, and riders on camels, sounds like an ancient Near Eastern text. Let him be alert, fully alert. And the lookout shouted, day after day, my Lord, I stand on the watchtower. Every night I stay at my post. Hold on. I don't see any science here. I'm scrolling down a little bit here. Forgive me. Within 1 year, as a serpent bound by contract would count it, all the splendor of Kedar will come to an end. I don't see any science here, Barry. I don't. Oh, hold on. It is part of Proto-Isaiah, and it predicts the fall of Babylon at a feast 160 years before it happened. Yeah, I'd question that part. But then again, people can flip a coin on seeing, like, that's like me saying, I predict that one day Russia will fall. One day Russia will fall. And I make a prophecy like Nostradamus. 200 years from now, Russia completely is renamed and is no longer Russia and it's something else or something. You'd go, whoa, what a prophet. No, you can flip a coin and say whether or not a nation is going to be or not going to be, especially ones that are major players in the world that are constantly at war with other nations. It's not difficult to make those kind of guesses, but from what I understand from Isaiah, a lot of scholars think there's three parts to it. And there's places in Isaiah, I think it's in Tritio Isaiah, where he literally mentions the name of the Persian king. And this is supposedly written hundreds of years before the Persian king is here. He gets his name in the text. Clearly, this was written after that king has already became king in Persia. And I can't remember right now off the top of my head if this is Artaxerxes or Cyrus, one of these kings. I think it's Cyrus the Great. But he gets name dropped in Isaiah. Well, how are you going to name drop the guy to a T hundreds of years before the guy actually shows up? What's more likely? You wrote it after the fact, or you really are prophesying and getting the guy's name exactly right. But I honestly would like to look at the commentaries because I don't know Isaiah 21 like the back of my hand, or what the actual experts would say about Isaiah 21. I could give a ring to Kipp, but I don't want to bother him. And he's probably busy right now. He did an awesome stream earlier today. I was able to catch while I was multitasking with Joshua Bowen, and they're talking about some deep archaeology and Joshua with the whole conquest and stuff, like challenging Michael Jones and Egyptologist, what's his name? The guy who freaking laughed so hard mocking Michael Jones and then changed Michael Jones's view on the Exodus, probably because he embarrassed the shit out of him, mocking him. Oh, man. Help me out in the chat. Someone, my brain is literally frying here and I got to eat. Help me out. Anyone, do you remember, what's the name of the Egyptologist that mocked the shit out of inspiring philosophy and then he changed his view? Man, that water is so good. Oh, Falk. That's right. Falk. David Falk. That's right. Thank you for helping me out. Anywho, Kipp would be the guy I'd call right now just because I have him on speed dial. I could call others, but I'm running out of fumes here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to lie. I know you think I'm, immortal, but that's the hypostatic union. Right now, I'm in the flesh. My limited knowledge, but truly I am divine, 100%, equal with the Father and the Holy Spirit. But the reason I don't know everything right now is because I'm in the flesh right now, and like shut off the hypostatic union. It's there. I just cut it off. The Trinity is still there. I'm still part of it. Totally kidding. Totally kidding. Don't be offended for those who believe in the Trinity. Oh, we got another super. Hannah Hodgins. Hodgins or Hoggins? Hodgins? It looks like Hodgins. Correct me on the pronunciation. Thank you so much for the super chat. You said, thank you, Derek, for what you do. You helped me in my deconstruction tremendously. We all love your insight. Thank you so much. It means so much to me. Hannah, seriously, I cannot tell you, if I'm having a down day, I just got to get on the stream. And it's a pick-me-up, hearing all the positive feedback from the audience. And like, really, I do recommend, if you're somebody who, you know, is looking for motivation and drive and encouragement, find something you really enjoy, do it, and ignore and block haters. You'll have an audience of people that are great, and you'll wake up in the morning and it'll help you with a drive. Even if you have a full-time job doing something else, you do this as a secondary thing, whatever that might be, music, exercise, arts and crafts. I mean, literally think of it and it can be done. You'll start to have an audience, people surrounding you that will encourage you, and it helps you to go. Because I think it's that human connection. I truly believe this, Hannah, that it's the human connection that helps us to thrive and to have good lives and to enjoy, you know, looking forward to the next day, looking forward to the next thing. And if I can't live my life constantly being just negative, I can't. I got to have my positive juice, my friendly interactions. And again, the compliment, it is well received. I really do appreciate that, Hannah. I'm glad that it helped you. Ben Jones with the super. My argument is always, if any of us were born 10,000 years ago, our God would have been a goat's head. Preach it, Ben. Preach it. Trying to get some water out of this thing. Look, Jesus said, if you believe in me, you'll never thirst again. And I used to believe in him a lot. And I am thirsty as hell. Oh. Man, that is so cool. Oh, he didn't mean it literally? I was mistaken. I would have been a goat's head, not Jesus. Just annoys me that people have such a small view of history. Aztec religion seems cool. I don't know how cool Aztec religion can be if the queen 100 more years. So we have this thing where when she just surprises me out of nowhere, I promise her 50 more years, 100 more years. Like, she'll just surprise me out of nowhere with some magical stuff like water. And she earns she has like millions of years with me at this point. Like, I can never leave her at this point. Like, I owe her millions of years of my life. And I don't know. She has to speak for herself on how she feels about me in this situation. But she'll make a meal that's unbelievable, and I'll just be like, millions of years, and like, I'm stuck. All right. Sorry for being distracted, but kind of need water to survive. We're coming back to the goat's head. Don't worry. I promise you we're coming back. If my ice is melting and my straw is having a hard time. Okay. Give me 1 second to survive. Okay, that was really good. I'm coming back to you. We would have believed in the goat's head, yes. Okay, or being funny here, animism of some sort. I don't know how cool. I got to give a little pushback, Ben. Bear with me now. I'm not trying to be negative. But from what I understand, they were doing a lot of human sacrifice in Aztec religion. I think it's Aztec, Mayan. Maybe they all did a little bit of it on the top of the pyramids, and were literally killing, sacrificing humans, sacrificing children, crazy stuff. And I don't know how cool that is. There might be aspects of ancient religion that might be cool. Some of that shit can just stay where it was. You know what I mean? Yeah. Imran says, Aztecs have been canceled in the chat. Apocalypto, one of my favorite movies. Like, really is a badass movie. If you have not seen Apocalypto, I do not want to ruin it for you, but it's amazing. So, yeah. Again, there's probably some really cool stuff we could learn about a lot of ancient religions, but that's one of them dark areas where truly, I wish we could time travel back to what fundamentally caused the ancients to really go, I think if I kill this life, then I will get abundant life. Like I know that there's some reasoning between agricultural death, the cycle of life and death and rebirth, that is built into sacrificing animals, but also sacrificing the most valuable life, precious life, which is human life. But like, you kind of have to wonder, like, was life really not viewed the same sacred way, or that we didn't value life as important then as we do now? Like, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one because these aren't like, it's not like a fetus. Okay. It's not like a situation there, whatever your position is on abortion. Like, we're talking the child is fully grown, or the child is fully born. You literally went through all this time, and then, take circumcision 8th day. Was that when they did this to infants? If there is any historical realities behind human sacrifices in ancient Israel, which there may have been, on the 8th day, you carried that child all that time and then decided, boom, like, whew, that's tough. That's tough. That is tough. And then sometimes, like, adults, you read about the priest under the king that went and sacrificed all the priests on their altars in the false Yahweh areas. They burned them alive on these altars. Like, whoa, crazy stuff. All right, Ben Jones, thank you so much for being funny and also making me have a laugh. Victor Engelman, thank you so much for the super chat, Victor. Well, in the first image of Jesus, Alexa Minos Graffito, Jesus has a donkey head. Yes, I'll bring that up. That's an interesting. Okay, this adds to my laugh about goats' heads. Jesus donkey head. For those of you who did not know, one of the earlier depictions of Jesus is, here's a colored one. Oh man, that's a really cool image. The color. I'm going to zoom in. It doesn't help if you zoom in. Okay, that did not help. I'm going to drag. This seems to be a pretty big image. So I'm going to actually share the screen so you can see this up close with me. And from what I understand, they found this in a region of like Alexandria, Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. Someone who's an expert or someone who's read up on this recently might be able to help me better. Okay, here it is. So this is depicting the crucifixion of Jesus with a donkey or an ass's head, and looks like some Roman dude on the ground, like waving at him. But this might be a mockery of Yahwistic belief, and that the idea, I think, in the Evil Creator, M. David Litwell talks about this in the Evil Creator, that like for centuries they had made Seth, Typhon, and Yahweh the same God. The evil god of Egypt, the desert deity, became the god of the Israelites. So there was this push to, like, even propaganda saying that they really had an image of a donkey's head in the Holy of Holies in the Jewish temple. And now here is a cross with a ass's head on the Jewish Messiah on a cross, mocking Jesus. And this is a mockery that Christians worship an ass-headed God. So even in the Common Era, the accusation is they're worshiping a donkey-headed deity, Seth from Egypt. Tell me that's not interesting, huh? Victor, great point. It's very interesting. It's a funny that adds to the Aztec funny one before that. I do appreciate the love, man. Thank you for being here. Good to see your face again and your name. Hannah Hodgins. Yes, you pronounced my name right. First time someone got it right. You're welcome. Thank you so much, Hannah, for the love, the support. I'm glad I got it right. Hodgins. Let me make sure I get that right from now on in the future too. Thanks for the love. I really, really appreciate it. And yes, there's a little lesson. I am probably missing a lot of the detail that I know that M. David Litwa talks about in The Evil Creator. I think he even has an online course about this. So you might can actually take The Evil Creator. He probably has a course that goes into this and shows and covers this a little more in depth. I could be mistaken, but I know it's in his book. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Planet Peterson and the Hizzy, my broski. Hey, man, we have to connect at some point, okay? It's literally the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit if we don't connect sometime, man. Virtually everyone sacrificed to by the Mexica Aztecs were prisoners of war. Richard the Lionheart beheaded 4,000 POWs in one day during the Crusades. Not excusing it, but it happens. Man, that's some tough stuff. That is some tough stuff. So, yeah, I pronounced the name of that god correctly too, right? Right? I got that right? And by Mexica, Aztecs were prisoners of war. So that video in Apocalypto seems to have been somewhat accurate in a way, right? I don't know if the tribes are historically accurate on what happened, but it seems to be. But Richard the Lionheart beheaded 4,000 prisoners of war in one day during the Crusade. Jeez, not excusing it. Humans are freaked up. Humans are super freaked up. You know what I'm saying? We've got a little ways to go. Long ways. Rodrigo Nino, thank you for the super. Tell us an Elaine Pagel story that she wouldn't mind you telling and how you first met. I first met Elaine Pagels reading her books, and I emailed her. And then she emailed me back, and I didn't hear from her for 3-6 months. And then I emailed her again. And then I didn't hear from her for 3 to 6 months. And then I emailed her again. And 3 to 6. She's a tough one. I'm telling you, she's a tough one to get. And then when I was able to make contact and communicate and express my enthusiasm for her book, The Gnostic Gospels, which blew my mind, she goes through the history of how she came across these fragments that were buried in like leather wrapped in jars in Egypt. And then they were discovered. And there were these ancient stories, these ancient texts, really blew my mind, like another Dead Sea Scroll discovery, if you will. And then while I was in video with her and I had her, I was like, I have to sell myself. Like, listen, Elaine, I will fly, please. I'll come and record with you. Anything I want to record, I want to put your name out there. She's like, well, I'll be in Colorado Springs, Colorado in, one of these months. I'm coming. So I did not make I was broke at the beginning of MythVision. I was dependent on everything I could possibly get to make that thing work at the beginning to be full-time. And I went out of my pocket, found a way and begged for people to also help with the GoFundMes. I was doing everything I can to make that trip possible. Flew to Colorado Springs, Colorado, interviewed her. She told me about how she raised her children in the home in the mountains there. She told me about how she lost the love of her life, who died in a hiking accident. And she also lost one of her children to death. And she explained why spirituality for her really mattered and why it helped her get through the death of her loved ones. And so when I hear that, as someone who may be skeptical, it's not my goal to trash or to try to belittle or be antagonistic to that. I get it. Sometimes a foxhole prayer means everything, right? Or maybe you really do find a way to tap into something with the spirituality that helps you get through those moments. So every time we connect, I always communicate with her coming from a more skeptical scientific angle, and she brings that spirituality. And it's almost like a psychologist thing for me, where I'm like, I could see the utility in what you're describing. and how the utility of what you call spiritual and I might call psychologically spiritual, or tapping into something, giving myself motivation or belief that I am greater, that there is something better to me in this world than just pure science and evolution of a primate. Like there's something that can help me to strive to become a better person or whatever. That kind of stuff is things that me and her usually tap into, and we mix in that way. You asked about a story that she wouldn't mind you telling. I think it would be the fact that she seems like, I know she's Episcopalian or something like that, but she seems more like a Gnostic in many ways. She seems more like a Gnostic because she doesn't care what you believe. She's like, it's about that gnosis, and it's not just about head knowledge. It's about tapping into that deeper belief in yourself, belief in more of the experience, not necessarily like, oh, I believe that God or this belief or this tradition or this or that. And it gives me food for thought as a skeptic who constantly combats against apologetics. But by the way, she agrees with that combat of like, these kind of apologetics go hand in hand with Christian nationalism and the kind of political force that we see in America today. And she's not a fan of that either, right? So, but she's also such a sweetheart. So I don't really know what to say apart from that. Those are really deep conversations about death and what these stories mean to her in light of losing a husband and losing a child. And I respect it. I don't knock experience. I say that I've said this for a long time, even with Allison Jr. I asked him one time, point blank, why do you believe this stuff? You're so critical. You realize the apocalypse failed. You don't know what Jesus really said and did. Like, why are you so much of a believer? And he says, in 1970 something, I had an experience. And he said, I personally don't chalk it up to hallucination. It was too profound, and I believe that it was real. I can say that I don't think it. I could say that it was hallucination. He probably wouldn't. I mean, if I jabbed him about it, he might be offended by it. But like, I don't find any utility in combating his personal experience. Personally, no. He's being as much as he can as a human, being as honest and trying to be accurate with what he knows and the methodology he uses with the Bible. And he's very critical in many ways. And then he leaves open the mystery because of his experience. So sorry for the long rabbit trail, but did you know that Elaine Pagels lives right down the street from Allison Jr.? We literally passed his house every day going to her house. I was trying to link up with him while I was there, but I didn't get the opportunity. He was out of town or out of country. Ben Jones, thank you so much for the super chat again. I just quickly threw the Aztecs in without much thought. Yeah, that happens to us, right? My point was people believed in all kinds of things based on culture and time period. That's true. No, I get it. Yeah, now you thought about it. And you said, yeah. No, I didn't really put too much thought into that. But yeah, thanks a lot, Ben. William Arons, thanks so much, William, for being here. You've been a patron of mine for a long time, and I appreciate you always being here. What is your opinion about the aggressive fundamentalism being done by the MAGA politicians on the state level? Could it lead to a secular backlash? I don't really know about a secular backlash, but I do know that there's so much. I'm like, I don't know. I want things to be figured out. I am very concerned. I told this to my parents when all this went down initially. I'm concerned that, what will this do for me as someone who's skeptical, who's critical, who brings in much more secular thought pertaining to Christianity, the Bible and stuff. And if we end up in a state or in a position in America where like they want to propagandistically force Bible into schools, force, religion into the public eye and tear down the separation of religion from the state. What will that do to platforms on YouTube like me who are in America, we're American based? Like, it's a concern, I have to be worried about. But I really don't know on the state level, to be honest with you. I'm not very caught up on politics. I'm not very focused on them. At some point, I plan on being more so. I can tell you that. But I am concerned a little bit on what I'm seeing so far and where things are headed. I don't know. Like, I'm looking at the founding fathers, for example, and they were like, even Jewish authors were writing saying, listen, Mr. President, talking to George Washington, saying, hey, we would be good citizens in your country. Please, if you'll tolerate us, we promise we won't cause any problems, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, there is no tolerance. You're welcome here. This is not a Christian nation. Like, George Washington is writing this stuff. So I just think a little bit of reading those founding fathers might help in those respects. But again, we need to leave some of the old shit. Like, slavery needs to stay gone, right? Obviously, I don't think that's coming back, but there's so much. I am a little bit concerned about it, but I'm also not trying to be pessimistic. I'm hoping that we, get through this and we pull through together. Greek informant in the house. What an interesting name, my friend. Greek informant. Can I make a request that you interview classical scholar Catherine Nixie on her book, The Darkening Age, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World, available on Audible? Let me pull this up. This seems very, very interesting. The name is Catherine Nixie. Catherine Nixie. And seems like she's got another book, Heresy, Jesus Christ, and Other Sons of God. Is that the right one? Or maybe this is a different one. She's a classical scholar. Darkening Age. Let me look this up. Darkening Age. Okay. I found the book, I think. Let me share my screen. Is this the book? The Christian Destruction of the Classical World? Interesting. Well, that would be, if it's in the line of saying that the Dark Ages were really dark. So let me read this. It says, a New York Times notable book, winner of the Jerwood Award from the Royal Society of Literature, and New York Times Book Review's Editor's Choice, and named a Book of the Year by Telegraph Spectator. Let's see what it's about. The Darkening Age is the largely unknown story of how militant religion deliberately attacked and suppressed the teachings of the classical world, ushering in centuries of unquestioning adherence to one true faith. Damn! I got to read this. I have to read this. I am definitely going to add this to the list because I do think there's something to this. And no matter what the apologetics might try to tell you, I would not put it past this for sure. Despite the long-held notion that early Christians were meek and mild, going to their martyrs' deaths, singing hymns of love and praise, the truth, as Catherine Nixie reveals, is very different. Far from being meek and mild, they were violent, ruthless, and fundamentally intolerant. Unlike the polytheistic world in which the addition of one new religion made no fundamental difference to the old ones, this new ideology stated not only that it was the way, the truth, and the light, but that by extension, every single other way was wrong and had to be destroyed. That sounds like right out of the New Testament. From the 1st century to the 6th, those who didn't fall into step with its beliefs were pursued in every possible way: social, legal, financial, and physical. Their altars were upturned and their temples demolished, their statues hacked to pieces, and their priests killed. It was an annihilation, authoritative, vividly written, and utterly compelling. This is a remarkable debut from a brilliant young historian. Holy shiznit. I am absolutely enthralled just with the description. It makes sense. I mean, they went from knocking on your doors like Jehovah's Witnesses to kicking in your damn doors. And of course, that was the ancient cancel culture is Christianity at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. I definitely need to read this. Is she you said she's a classicist, right? Catherine Nixie. Let me see. Catherine Nixie, classicist. If she's a PhD, that'll help even more. She's a British. Okay, I don't know if this is her. Hold on. Yeah, it is. Okay, British journalist and author. Can you guys see that? Or am I only sharing? Yeah. Here we go. So, British journalist and author, best known for her book, The Darkening Age, The Christian Destruction. Nixie's work explores the cultural and religious shifts that occurred in the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire, particularly focusing on the destruction of temples, art, and literature by early Christians. Her debut book, okay. Raised in a Catholic family, her mother was a nun, her father was a monk. Damn! She's got that OG status. She studied classics at the University of Cambridge, later teaching the subject for several years before transitioning to a career in journalism. After teaching classics, okay, you've convinced me. You've convinced me, Greek informant. You win. I'm on your team. I no longer fight you on this. I am 1,000,000% reaching out, and I'm going to make something happen, my friend. You mark my words. If she's willing, I will make something happen. And not only that, I guarantee you Gnostic Informant's going to want to do something, and History Valley. Guarantee you we got to hit it from different angles, right? We all have to eat from the buffet here. That I got to get that book. I'm probably going to buy it as soon as I get off of here and reach out with an email, because man, that sounds good. Does that not sound good? It does to me. Hell no, I read it. Doc Pluromina. Hold on. Doc Pluromina. Help me out here, brother. Bro, she's not an academic. She has as much credibility as Lee Strobel, both journalists. She's not. Okay, hold up. Someone, you might want to reword your statement there, Derek. Hit it from that. Hold up. That's dirty mind. Dirty mind. That is absolutely not what I'm talking about. Help me out, Doc. Help me out. How is this not academic if she's coming at it from a classics, early life and education? I don't know. Sounds like the opposite of the kind of stuff we would get with what's the guy who says he's agnostic atheist but claims that Christianity has done nothing but good? It's like the whole reason we have good ethics and morals in the world today. What's the name of that guy? Reddington. Take your mind somewhere else. Wilding out. Help me out. What's the famous apologist go-to atheist guy who wrote the book about that all good comes from Christianity, pretty much? Tom Holland. Yes, Doc, help me out. Help me out, Doc. What is so not good about this? You read it, and I respect you, man. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not going to read it, but okay. So I can have a BA in classics and write a book. She is an oversimplification for a broader audience. Okay, but would you disagree with her with what she's suggesting in this book? I'm still going to probably get the book, though. It'd be interesting in like getting her views. Where are you at? Where are you at? I know there's a delay, so bear with me. Yeah, Tom Holland, man, that's the go-to. Everyone goes, Tom Holland proves it. You're just like Tom Holland. I'm shocked because how much ethics from the philosophy of Stoics and Epicureans and the Platonists. I mean, there's so much philosophical thought that was already in the world that Christianity was born into, where these moral standards were already there. It just like blows me away. It really, really does. It shocks me. But then again, it doesn't. All right. Needs more evidence, but a fun read. Okay, Doc. Thank you for being, me and Ryan, we just came on a flight from New Jersey. I'm thankful that you scared me with the initial. I'm like, no, I want this to be a good book. And it probably is a great book. We're flying back. She has rubbed off on me on her fear of heights, by the way. I used to get in airplanes and be like, and just be fine. Now I'm like secretly clenching the damn wall when it's bouncing around. I'm thinking, oh my God, please, turbulence, stop. I don't want to crash. Like every time I get on a flight, this is so weird. Now, it used to not be this way. I legitimately wonder if today is the day that the plane's going down and I'm in it. I don't know if am I alone, or are there other people who are afraid that the plane's going to crash if they're in? Because I don't know. Like, I'm like, this might be the day. Did I give a will to my children? Do they know the password to my debit account? Like I'm like literally freaking out. And then it reminded me of the statement that optimists created the airplane and pessimists were the ones who made the parachutes. Because they're like, if this shit's going down, we need a way to survive. The seatbelt was made by a pessimist. The car was made by the optimist. And we need a little bit of both. You got to have both. So, hell yeah. Orchard said, hell yeah. Yeah, look, Reddington, I'm feeling you on this. I drive like up to 800 miles to visit family, rather not go in airplanes. Listen, after I make it alive and we land, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad it only took me 2 hours for a 18-hour drive. Like, we literally are tempted, me and Ryan are like, road trip. Like, I might as well put on an audio book because I can really listen to lots of books through audio and drive 18 hours to go visit Elaine Pagels instead of a 2-hour flight. And I'm trying in my mind to make an excuse to drive instead of fly, because that's how freaking weird I am at this point in my life, seeing planes crash and then just worried about what if, and then going, man, I have control over at least my vehicle, and I feel like more confident and safe there instead of like someone else is flying for me. I don't know. And anyway, about the book, notice we just went into the damn airplane. Matt at Max says, I feel like that too sometimes. All right. Hold on. Let me see. Where we at? Where we is. Okay. Look, I got to call these publishing companies and tell them, look, MythVision's bringing you book sales. What's up? Seriously. Dan's book, Because the Bible Says So. Absolutely. Okay. Tom Holland is a clown. He has a conservative agenda. If you want to make millions, just pitch it to Christians. Look, I'm going to tell you, I'm probably never going to do this. This is probably why I actually am saying this, but you would never know if it was real or not if I really put the act on. I really, really thought about it. What if I pretended I converted back to like some form of Orthodox Christianity? What if I pretended that I had a profound experience that was spiritual, and I claimed it was real, and I'm putting on the show. I'm tearing up. I am like legit selling this. How many apologetic channels, how many Christians would join the club? How many sales? Oh, just so happens that I have a book published too around the same time, right? Imagine the fame you can gain from such a thing, right? Imagine. And then I was like, no, I don't want to be that disrespectful, but I almost wanted to do it as like a thought experiment, sincerely trying to persuade people that's what happened to me. And then 6 months to a year later, like literally go, look at what it's done. Like, I've proven it, but it's just too much. It'd be way too much. I couldn't go that long bullshitting, maybe one day at best. But even then I'd feel like too much guilt to hold on to lying to everybody about it. But I really do think if you just want pop to fame and you're like a skeptic who's antagonistic, look, convert. Just convert. Become a Christian. I promise you, there's a million people, evangelicals online, that'll just turn their brain off and go straight to whatever you say if you just join their club, become part of the tribe, and echo their sentiment. You're going to fit right in. Okay. Blessed Goku with the super chat. Blessed Goku says, hey, Derek, I've learned os, meaning I think so much from you and your friends. Thank you and praise Doug. Hallelujah. Ha mama shiba baba. See, Doug makes me speak in tongues. And we're talking about the rock Doug that my buddy Justin from Deconstruction Zone has. Speaking of which, I need to chat with him again soon. He did a debate on Modern Day Debate, and the guy presupped, and I'm so like annoyed with the whole precept thing. Like it bothers me. It's like it's dumb to me. Like if you I don't know. It's just so much. Maybe I'll talk with Justin about it. We'll have a show because I have been precept, I have been scripted, and I am not fully ins and outs aware of all of the script and what they're trying to do and all of that. But I can. It's just odd because they could sweep the rug out from everything you say if they just applied this little script on you and then turn around. Everything you say is bullshit. And the very tools by which we observe and test and such that make sense of the reality we live in falsify the claims that the preceptors believe at the end of the day. So they just want you to grant that there's intelligent God, something of a God we would call intelligent. And then they want to sneak Bible in, and the very tools by which we are able to measure and observe the world we live in literally falsify the very thing they're trying to presuppose to begin with. It's odd to me, man. The water brought me back to life. Okay. It's an epistemological floor, not a ceiling. Doug has jumped the shark about 3 months ago. Okay. Hannah Hodgins, I'm starting to think really is trolling. What? Why? I did not believe that. So you had surgery scheduled. Okay. There's some beef going on, I think, in the chat, ladies and gents. Sherry with the laughing emojis. Probably due to my little speaking in tongues. It's a gift. If you don't have it, you just don't have it. Part of my Christianity that I first got into, though, they believed if you did not speak in tongues, you were not saved, because it was a gift of the Spirit that everyone should have in their view. And the evidence of being saved is like that was the evidence that you were saved. They could tell you had the Spirit because you spoke in tongues, which proved the Spirit lived in you. Super, super smart stuff. I know. It sounds as though Heisey's book is investigating an ancient religious intolerance that certain political and religious figures are recreating today. William, you're onto something. This is why you should pay attention to politics. I agree. Don't get me wrong. I should. I'm just saying I am not that deep in. Like, I have not studied in depth, if that makes any sense. And I plan on doing more of that over the years. I've just been so lost in Bible stuff. And man, if you could talk about Jesus and Paul all day, as soon as you talk politics, damn, you're in a shitstorm. Like, I mean, honestly, William, you probably seen this stuff online, but like, you're hated or loved, and there is no in between. There is no middle ground. You could talk about their God and they don't care. But then when you start talking about politics, it's you're the worst. And it's like, wow, okay. I only speak in tongues when you naughty people. Naughty people. Kipp! Dr. Kipp Davis in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Roll out the red carpet. Go subscribe to Dr. Kipp Davis. Hey, I was tuned into your stream earlier. I wasn't able to chat. I was multitasking. Great stuff, Kipp. I love this. I'm so glad you guys finally had another expert come in and chime in. It sounded to me, correct me if I'm wrong, Kipp, that like there's a bunch of hype about that wall that they found from Joshua's conquest. And I can't remember if this is in Jericho or whatnot. But like this seems to be totally hearsay at this point. There's not any real legitimate argument. Dude, like that's me listening while I'm doing something. So, you know, my listening skills aren't the greatest while I'm doing this. Help me out, Kipp. What happened earlier? And why should people go and watch that? Let me pull up your YouTube channel. All right. Live stream. You didn't do it live. That's an actual video. And it's with, hold up, Canaan in the late Bronze Age. Sharing my screen. Sharing my scrizzle. Here we go. This is the video. And this is definitely the one. Amahi Mazar. I hope I pronounced his name properly. I think he drops some truth bombs that are going to hurt some people's feelings that I expect we're going to end up seeing responses to. So is this true, Kipp? Is this true? I need an answer while you're riding your freaking bike. You better answer. Okay. Oh, we got another one here. Hunter Biden's I got to pull this YouTube channel up. Golly. It never ends. Hunter Biden's laptop. It's my boy Jay. Jay up in the hizzle. Hold on. Dude, I must have typed it in wrong because it literally pulled up Hunter Biden laptop controversy. Hold on. Hold on. Hunter Biden's apostrophe. That might help. Laptops, plural. Channel. You know what? It did it again, even though I gave it the exact name. What is that about, Jay? Hold on. Let me filter this out for channels. Channel. Yeah. There we go. And there's a bunch of people named Hunter Biden's laptops, but not with the plural. What? So this is my other channel. That's why it's... Let me switch to my actual account. Forgive me here. Okay. Popping up the live here. Hunter Biden laptops. I'm just going to put J. Oh my God. Dude, why is it not? I'm searching Jay and it's popping up nothing but. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me. Pocket Locker, bro. I mean, Jesus, why didn't I know this? My brain is shot. It's been streaming too long and not. Dude, I'm so sorry, Jay. Forgive me, bro. I should have known that off the top of my head. All right, here we go. Presenting, and I'm going to share the link. Everyone needs to go subscribe, especially if you are more into politics stuff. Like, you're definitely going to be in the chat, and Jay is like hardcore. I'm a monster. Justin from Deconstruction Zone will do like 12-hour live streams. I don't even know how he does it. I'm like popping, like, what are you popping, like 6 Adderall before you go live, dude? This is tough stuff, bro. I am not cut from the same cloth. Again, Jay, subscribe to Pocket Locker 86. He says, and thanks for the super chat, brother. Spot on. I think we spend too much time discussing dogma that's obviously false and not enough time discussing how the people who believe behave. Love you, brother. Thank you for that super chat. And you followed it up with, I do my shows on Pocket Locker 86 channel. So please go subscribe. Misinterpretations is back. I gave you a shout out earlier. I hope you gained some subscribers from it. I love you. Thank you so much for super chatting. And then Kipp Davis, look, you could tell the end of the apocalypse is literally upon us. Thou shalt not tarry here. Okay. Kipps, thank you so much, man. Thanks, Derek. Not hearsay. There is legitimately fragments of a late Bronze Age 2 fortification at Jericho. We don't know much about it yet, but it also doesn't change anything with regards to the Exodus, of course. Of course. This was kind of again, cities that built the Bible. I'm reminded of our good friend Robert Cargill and like how he points out, it's going to sound funny, but like, imagine I have a scroll here and I'm at the Dead Sea and I go, huh, that pillar over there looks kind of like a human. There was a woman in the Lot story where she turned back and God said, don't, or I'll turn you into a pillar of salt. Like, they're writing stories based on the geography. And so a lot of these Canaan cities and Mesopotamian ziggurats and stuff, like, I imagine they went, whoa, only giants could have built that. Whoa, there must have been a war here because what? They saw a wall or they saw something that looked destroyed. So they crafted great narratives surrounding the geography. I mean, it's still, again, I imagine you would just say amen. I know how you are. I know how you are. Seriously, though. Thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you. Seriously, you lost a contact lens. The end of the world is upon us. Serious. Jay, love you. Thank you again. I'm about to bounce, everybody. I literally need to eat. I am going to, like, I'm one of those people who cries about eating. My dad told me if I did join the military, I probably might be athletically capable with keeping up with the Rangers and, you know, special forces and stuff. But that eating part, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to have to do that. Why you might be wrong. In the beginning of this video, I go deep into this and just kind of cover where I'm at. I'm in chapter 2, almost done with chapter 2. What if all of Paul's 7 letters are epistolary fiction? The authentic ones aren't authentic. What if we're wrong? What would that do? This book is radical. It is game-changing. Don't know if it's true. Don't know if it's accurate. It's absolutely worth food for thought and understanding the history behind Pauline's scholarship. Get you a copy. I do plan on interviewing her at some point on this channel. And holy smokes, it's been a fun ride. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Let me pull up one of these outro videos. Let me do the Matrix. Look, I just want to say this cartoon is literally based off the movie Matrix. It has nothing to do with me swallowing a red pill as if I'm swallowing right-wing conservative MAGA stuff. Literally, it is based on the idea of Plato's cave in the Matrix movie. And that is the idea that I want to wake up and know the truth. We've been in delusion. This fictitious world that we were taught, it's Plato's cave. And waking up to reality and being saved by academics, which are the silhouettes that you see in the cartoon. That being said, let me make sure I didn't lose. I don't want to leave anybody hanging here. Okay. Thank you so much, Cheryl, Nicholas, Sherry. Love y'all. Thank you for popping in. Nick H. Man, it's been a blast. It's been a great way back. It's been a minute. And now we shall go into the Matrix. Never forget, we are MythVision.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.